When you see the consciousness in the world around you, you find the consciousness within yourself. Aloha, cosmic students of this multidimensional universe. This is Brendon, aka Skull Babylon, aka Skull the Wolf, Wolf Shield, joining you once again for another very exciting live broadcasted edition of Paradigm Shift Destiny School. Tonight's topic being the consciousness of animals. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As per usual, this is a live broadcast on behalf of ParadigmShiftCentral.com, a real world interactive game to help shift consciousness. And as per usual, we got some amazing people with us right off the start of this broadcast. So I'm just going to invite these people to be able to unmute their microphones, and let's just make some animal noises and say hello to all the beautiful people tuned into this. So guys, with your microphones turned up, make some noise, make some animal noises, send some love. So yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. You can definitely see we got a lot of animal energy going on tonight for tonight's broadcast. So yes, thank you again for everyone tuning into this. For those of you who may be tuning into this right off the bat, please feel free to join in helping share this broadcast. That is a huge thing that helps with this. You guys can even share this in some of Facebook groups. That is a way to be able to be involved and participate in this. And we're going to get right into the discussion pretty early on, just in some basic overviews as a basic introduction. Again, for those of you who may be completely new, ParadigmShiftCentral.com is, as I said, an ongoing interactive real world game to help shift consciousness. Part of the way how we do that, part of the way how we help shift consciousness is by creating conscious media, by documenting the shift, by creating a sacred digital space to be able to talk about the things that we don't normally get a chance to talk about. And of course, you can check out more on the main website, including community quest journals, conscious articles, videos, and future interactive hangouts that you too can be a part of, as well as a global network for shifters and paradigm shift communities, which focus on regular open-minded discussion and meditation. So in the same way we're having a digital meetup here, we're always encouraging people to create physical paradigm shift communities so that they can learn from these broadcasts and say like, hey, we can do that in person. We can get a group of people together. We can talk about consciousness. And in the case of today, talking specifically about the consciousness of animals. So within the broadcast that we do through Paradigm Shift Central, we have the team building hangouts, dream class, the admin hangouts, and also this, which is Destiny School. And so Destiny School, we rotate through a variety of specific topics. And we've done a few throughout the past, such as ones on dreaming, meditation, health and fitness, sacred sexuality, a couple others. Conscious themes within movies was a really cool one. You can go back and check those out on the main website. And so this is a topic that I'm really excited about. So this is into the big theme of the consciousness of animals. So that's going to be the focus of this discussion. And so part of the intention behind doing this, and we'll get the ball rolling and we'll start passing the talking stick around, is to really just kind of like use this as an opportunity to get into being able to understand more about ourselves, more about our nature as humans, more about our place within the cosmos, so to speak, by observing the behavior of animals, the nature of animals, the patterns that animals exhibit, even the emotions and the characteristics and even the virtues of animals, and how animals help us learn more about ourselves. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can take this discussion. I'm sure we'll even get into the idea of like, like animal rights and veganism, which is a huge thing that a lot of people are moving towards as well. So, just really opening up this entire spectrum of the theme of consciousness and animals. So as we move into this, we'll get the talking stick moving around. And again, this is just all practice. And we do have some general questions that we'll be able to bounce around the group. But if you guys are in the live chat, please feel free to throw in some additional points, some additional questions that you guys might want to add. Because even if you're not in the Hangout, you guys are still interacting with the Hangout. You guys are still a part of the class by being here, simply by participating in the live chat. So again, as we kind of do this, you can think of this as this virtual classroom, it unfolds. It's an opportunity for us to take turns kind of like stepping up to the front of the class and talking. But at the same time, you can also think of it as a circle, and it's a lot easier to just visualize it that way as well. So some of the questions that I had within the preface of the broadcast is, I said, how can studying animals, any non-Homo sapien being, help us better understand ourselves? What are unique patterns and ways of life? What unique patterns and ways of life do some animals exhibit that that display fascinating traits and abilities of consciousness. So this is where we can get into some of like the extrasensory aspects that animals exhibit, and maybe they're teaching us about like the psychic potentials within this reality for any species. Do animals feel the same way as we do? How do they perceive the world around them? Do they experience time differently? Do they understand what love is? Do some of them display natural abilities such as telepathy, and that can help us understand our own dormant abilities, as I was just saying? And how should we perceive and treat animals? Are they a key to a bigger understanding of what is possible within this reality and what may be hidden behind the veil? So, as we get into this, my first notes, and then we're passing the talking stick around. I've talked about this in other previous broadcasts, and you know, for me, even just expanding the definition of like, you know, we as in a culture, we kind of have this idea of humans and animals being separate things. You know, like humans, we're the bipedal people that talk and communicate and have higher like cognitive abilities and everything, and then everything else is basically animals. And within the concepts of this broadcast, even the concept of like insects, we'll all just fit that in under animals. So like reptiles, mammals, insects, all of it kind of fits under animals in this case. And we'll expand, you know, like where does at what point does something not become an animal if it's still sentient, so to speak? And what is consciousness within other beings? We can touch upon that. So one of the things that I've said in other broadcasts that's really sort of shift my own paradigm is basically this idea of flexing the definition of what human means. So for those of you who may not have already heard this, I'll just repeat it again. But the word human to me encapsulates the concept of animals as well. Like when I think of human, I think of any sort of vehicle that consciousness can work through. And so that is the idea of human, the word human, literally being thought of as the hues of mana. And again, hues being spectrums, colors, shades, mana being this universal energy that we are all a part of. So yes, us talking here with our fingers and our eyes and our cognitive abilities, we are humans. But it's interesting to think about the idea of how animals are also humans as well. But in this concept, we'll be referring to animals with the term animals simply for differentiating them between us, but understanding that both are very essentially human. So within this, let's pass the talking stick around, and we'll just kind of allow the conversation to go wherever it needs to go wherever it can, and really just thinking about this as practice. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning into this. And yeah, we'll get into some other stuff as we go through this broadcast. I will just say, if we can get some Team Patreon signups during this broadcast, that is a huge bonus. And of course, you can find the links for that in the show info, and that helps support the ongoing production of the Paradigm Shift Central project. And that's at patreon.com/paradigm, or sorry, let me retry that. Paradigm Shift Central, patreon.com/Brendon Culliton. And you can also find it in the info for this video on YouTube. And there's like a card thing on the YouTube video that you can click that makes it really easy. So yeah, we got a few people into the chat. So I want to be able to just like invite you guys to share why you are drawn to this topic. Is basically the first question that I just kind of want to put out there. You know, like, why is this topic important to you? And you know, like, how are animals helping us learn more about ourselves? So again, let's just see where this goes, and we'll kind of unfold in that way. So let's see, who would like to introduce themselves first? So you guys can just do a basic introduction of just say who you are, where you're from, and you know, what brings you to Destiny School today for this topic. So if somebody would want to volunteer to go first, just raise your hand, and I'll pull up your microphone, and we can get right into this. And it looks like we do actually have Raini, who is here. So yo, Raini, I'm just going to pull up your microphone, and we're just going to do a microphone check. So yo, dude, welcome. Go ahead and just say hello.
What up? Sorry if it's a little loud. I'm like downtown New York.
Actually, it sounds pretty good, man. So all good.
Sweet.
Perfect, man. Well, Raini, if you're ready to introduce yourself, I'd be happy to pass the talking stick right over to you, man. And thank you so much for joining. So,
yeah, my name is Raini Pachak. I am here definitely interested in talking about animal consciousness and animal rights and animal, just anything animal. Let's do it. If don't eat them, yeah, that would be really sweet if people would stop doing that. So I have a YouTube channel called Symbiotic Solutions. I've been pretty inactive on it lately, but it's all about mostly healthy eating and stuff like that. But mostly it's the idea is anything symbiotic. I think we as humans should be symbiotic, with a symbiotic relationship with nature and animals and plants. And I think that's our most healthy way of living. I think it's the most ecological and animal friendly way of living. And we get to eat lots of fruits and vegetables, so it's the most healthy for ourselves as well. In terms of animals, I think we're animals, so we can talk about what we can learn about from one another, as much as we can talk about what we can learn about from dogs or chimpanzees or animals that are just like us. So I'm really excited to be a part of this talk. I just found out about it about half an hour ago. I just got done with the animal rights protest, actually my first real protest, aside from one when I was about 10 years old, protesting George W. Bush in Portland. But this was about a puppy mill slash pet shop that was abusing their animals, and very sad thing, but very, very heartening to see a lot of people out there and helping to spread awareness. And yeah, I hear it's glitching a little bit. I hope you guys can hear me all right. But
all right, there we go. Okay. All right. Okay. Just checking in. The glitch was on my end, so I think we're okay right now. So, okay.
Sweet.
You can hear me okay, Raini?
I can, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sweet. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, man, I'd love to just kind of be able to pick your brain for a second, since we've gotten you here just in time and everything. And just give me a heads up. How long do you think you're able to stick around for? Because I know you're in the midst of an adventure. So
I got a bike back about 15 miles back home, but I'm all here, man.
okay,
I'm here.
Cool, man. Sweet.
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah. And so again, let me just kind of just allow people to be, for those of you who don't know Raini already, he's been involved in past Paradigm Shift Central broadcasts. And yeah, his YouTube channel is definitely something you're going to want to check out. He's got a lot of high quality videos that he does, and we'll include those into the show notes as well. And yeah, Raini is a constant advocate of not only like encouraging people to eat healthy, but also to be able to eat consciously. And he's constantly like phrasing and creating dialogue and discussion and discourse on through his Facebook that is slowly but surely helping people become more aware of the food that they're eating, and evidently moving them towards a more plant and fruit based diet. But yeah, Raini, I mean, I know you just kind of said that, but like I just kind of want to ask you, like, when did you really start getting passionate about the idea of like no longer wanting to see animals as just like food for the industry, so to speak? Like, was there a point where you used to eat animals for food, and then at what point did you kind of begin to recognize the consciousness within animals, so to speak?
Man, if I have to pinpoint a moment, it was probably when I was tripping on mushrooms when I was 14 years old. But that's when I kind of realized that we are animals, and anything that we have in common with animals is I mean, we have way more in common with pretty much any other animal than we have not in common with them. So when I realized that we are animals, I realized that animals are us, and the vast majority of them are very conscious and very smart. And so it was about 10 years ago that I actually went vegan. I had a vegan friend that was like, dude, when are you going to go vegan? And I'm just like, yeah, no, I should. And it was about when I was 18 years old, I went vegan. I think I saw Earthlings. I was really learning about conspiracy theory and stuff like that, and learning. I saw Earthlings, the documentary about animal slaughterhouses and fur and everything terrible that we do to animals. And I went vegan. I went raw vegan. Most people go vegan and they eat all sorts of fake meat and fake cheese and fake processed vegan foods. And I really am glad that I sort of got away from that for the most part and just went straight to the raw, fresh fruits and vegetables, which I believe is the healthiest way to eat. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome, man. Sweet. Well, definitely thank you again for being here. And I know there's more stuff that we'll be getting into. So let's just go through a couple introductions. And yeah, well, again, thank you, Raini, for rocking it, dude. You're doing awesome stuff. So
My pleasure.
awesome, man.
So are you, dude.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So go team, and let's keep passing, talking, stick around. So again, let's just kind of say like who we are, and like what brings us to this class. Why is this class important to us? And then any sort of like general ideas that maybe you want to put out there to the group. So we got Bryan, we got Jam, and we got Kyle. So if one of you guys just wants to raise your hand real quick, and I'll pull your microphones up. Bryan. Okay. Cool. So Bryan, passing it over to you. Welcome back to the broadcast, and go right ahead, brother.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about just converse with everyone here. I don't want to. I want to talk about like chirping and talking and singing versus rapping. The connectivity of how we all communicate with one another. With bats and bats and dolphins, it's sonar and so forth. But you can give a paintbrush to an elephant and they can paint a picture. And they say parrots are as smart as 6-year-olds. They have the equivalent intelligence, and dogs, for that matter, have the equivalent intelligence of 2-year-olds, and they can recognize certain phrases that you're saying. And there's a loyal gene with dogs, I guess they're talking about, where it's able to like understand humans, like just how we do with emotion, like we're looking at our face. But I don't know if that's just a bias, and I don't know if it's an actual gene or not. I don't know a lot of everything, but. Picture, and they say parents are as smart as 6-year-olds. They have the. Oh, someone's got it on Facebook live chat or something. Okay.
No, sorry about that. Keep going.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's like for example with birds, they make mating calls, right? And it's a certain enunciation to the world. But they also, I just saw a bird went chirp, like curved its chirp today, and I saw it throw the bird in the other direction. Like it used like this amazing language to know where to fly to next. It was 2 robins looking for a worm, sticking out of the ground. And another funny thing, right at the same house, right at my house, there's a alarm clock that we have that slowly wakes us up every morning, and it chirps. And I found it interesting that the birds outside started imitating it as well. Like it wanted to communicate with the alarm clock, And I think it likes the dawn aspect, how we wake up at the same time, just like how roosters crow, in the morning. I'm talking a lot about birds, but there's also insects. A lot of people don't respect invertebrates, and they have a different mindset. They think as a colony. They have a hive mind, just as we adopt it towards the internet, where we have a hive mind. It's very interesting, intelligence and the way that we communicate. I think anything that's living, you could even consider a virus as living, but it's such a parasite that it needs another life for it to live within, for it to survive. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm just getting the ball rolling here.
Totally, man. Yeah, those are some key points there. I think it's really interesting when we start observing the intelligence of animals, because again, like we commonly value and sort of like measure intelligence based on our own intelligence, based on what we're used to, based on our ability to like build a vehicle or create a computer or to create art and stuff like that. But again, like animals have their own form of incredibly complex intelligence that is relative to the systems that they are naturally a part of. So like you were saying, their forms of language. I think it's so fascinating that we consider ourselves so advanced, yet we are unable to actually understand the full language of another being. And oftentimes, again, I think that's because we sort of like position ourselves as being, as our language being superior. So it's just like, oh, they're just making noise. But I think we often underestimate how much the actual like density of a single like bird chirp can actually contain data wise that is being transmitted and received by other birds in the area. Like I think it's easy for us to look at it as being something simple, but I think the reality is that it's actually far more complex and dynamic. And there's even something I was going to mention about dolphins and relative to their sonar waves, and I'm going to get into that later, so we'll save that. So yeah, we'll keep passing the talking stick around. But Bryan, is there any other thing that you want to mention, because those are some key points, and I think we'll get back to those later.
I would like to talk for 1 minute on us being animals again, and I think it's so true. I look at we are just at the cusp of evolving biologically, where now our memes, which are genes that are memories. Richard Dawkins coined the term in 1972 in his book, The Selfish Gene. And, you know, we have internet memes where they have the same thing all the time, like, you know, same picture, different caption. But with real memes, it's a television screen that starts from black and white to color to 1080 to 4K. And it's evolving outside of our body. So is language, so is everything. But we're 98% chimpanzee. We have just dexterous enough fingers to manipulate things around us, to build tools better than chimpanzees. If you look at our feet, we evolved quicker than what we would ordinarily to walk on the ground normally. You know, like we wear shoes. It's a meme that we invented. And so now our feet are soft in the bottom. And look at our toes. You know, they were once hands at some point, but now they're used for balance. So it's just like dolphins and whales having fingers within their fins and flukes. Or no, just their fins, excuse me. It's the same concept. You know, we're all evolving, we're all on this planet together, and I think that what we need to focus on is not so much, you know, appreciation of the animals. It's like, how do we break the normality of just talking to people like we're one with everyone? You know, what do you consider conscious? You know, and I'll talk about it later, but there's AI. You know, I wanted to talk about AI being conscious. So I think I had the talking stick for a while now. I think we can pass it to someone else.
That's perfect. Thank you, Bryan. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. And again, you know, like within this conversation, it will make sense for us to just kind of even address the idea of what is consciousness. So, I mean, that's something we can kind of just begin to explore as well as we get into this as well. So let's continue to bounce the talking stick around. So we have a couple players still who are in the circle who we have Jam, we have Kat, and we have Kyle. So if one of you guys just wants to raise your hand, and you guys can introduce yourself next. So we'll bring it over to Jam first, and then Kyle, and then Kat. So Jam, welcome to Destiny School, and again, just say who you are, maybe where you're from, and what brings you here, and anything about this topic that you'd like to share with the group.
Hey guys, I'm Jam from North Carolina. What brought me here? I've been meaning to come and join the discussion for a while now, get some practice in. Animal consciousness. What I was thinking about, I didn't really have anything to say. I was just gonna kind of listen, but there's some pretty interesting. I like what Raini brought up about like veganism and stuff, because I've been slowly changing my diet this year. I've been changing a lot of habits this year, and diet I'm finding is like the next big one. So I was actually looking up videos of veganism and like how to, you know, I stopped eating red meat, and then I like down to chicken, and then the chickens, I'm noticing that's still messing me up. So I'm like, all right, I got to put together a master shopping list and change this stuff. But so just hearing that's kind of giving me the next, all right, that was a synchronicity. I'm going to start working on that next. But other than that, I was thinking about cats and like how some animals can see, like, I guess like stuff that's not there, kind of beyond the veil. Like a couple of years ago when I was really into my depression and I was drinking a lot and I definitely had some bad vibes going on around me, my cat wouldn't even come into my room with me. And if I brought my cat in my room, he'd run to the door and like be meowing and like looking around up at the ceiling. Like it could see something that wasn't there. So that, I mean, at the time I was just like, whatever, but thinking back on it now, I'm like, I wonder what can they see that's not there, that I can't see, that eventually I could feel, and it was actually the room I'm in right now. And, since then this is where I do all my spiritual practice. This is where I burn sage and stuff. And now the cats come in here and they love being around me, and, they cuddle with me up on the futon and everything. So I don't know. That's what I got to say about animal consciousness. Word,
man. Word. Awesome. Yeah, those are some great points. I like the where you're going with that. The idea of that our normal perception, yet outside of our normal. Maybe they're not totally outside of our perception, just outside of our normal perception. And that's where, yeah, you hear a lot of people talking about the idea animal sense. Sorry, I'm just taking a second here because I'm just making sure that everything is running smoothly. It looks like it's okay. It's just the browser's a little choppy on my end. Okay, cool. Sweet. Okay, so let's keep passing the talking stick around, assuming you guys can hear me okay. I think so. Windows here. All right, okay, so we'll pass it over to Kyle next. And Kyle, if you're there, I'm just going to bring up your microphone and go right ahead, dude. You can introduce yourself next and what brings you to Destiny School.
All right, word. All right, cool. Yo, what's up? I'm Kyle. I've been doing paradigm shift stuff for a while. I don't know, man, like a little more than a year, I think, at this point. I don't know, recently I've just been hanging out and doing me and doing the journey thing and animals. I think we're here to do our part in the ecosystem, man. I think we may or may not be a freak of nature. I've got a couple different theories on why human beings are like on Earth, man. The point is, we're here now, like, yo, or like how human beings came to be. You know what I mean? Like, the point is, like, we're here now, right? And like, I see it as like, yo, animals, they're like our older brother or something. Yeah. We can learn from them. They're also here to, like, you know, they provide for us when we need them to. I think it's just like us playing part in the ecosystem. It's all part of the balance. You know what I mean? I don't think it's like unhealthy to consume like animal and use animal for things. I definitely, I don't know, man. Like, I definitely think there's a huge difference between like what you could hunt and what you could buy. There is a huge difference. I don't know, man. If you ever eaten like some good venison and it's really like very sweet compared to like, you know, like beef you would buy from the store, that's kind of like, I don't know, it's just like a tailored taste. But it's, you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a difference, but you would have to have eaten game as opposed to like bought. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think we're here to just do our part in the ecosystem. We are masters of our environment in a different way. We have a greater level of consciousness and communication. We have an ultimate, you know, we have an ultimate ability to completely redefine and change the environment that is around us, like, in itself. We're the only thing that can do that, that's on Earth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I like what you're saying there, the idea that animals are like our older brother. Because I think the idea of like seeing them as, you know, like kin, as seeing them as equal and stuff like that is, you know, the overall theme of this. But yeah, like the idea of older brother, sorry, I'll pass back in real quick, is what I visualize there is the idea that like they've been here longer than us. You know, like we kind of forget that, and so just because they've been here longer than us doesn't mean they're less than us. In many ways, they've actually got a lot more figured out. And I think the very simple thing, and we'll get into this, animals are here to humble us. Animals are here to help us deconstruct our ego in a lot of ways. Kyle, go ahead. Pass them back to you.
Yeah, 100%. Like you had some very good key points right there. I think animals are actually here to be humble. You know what I mean? And animals do humble us, because like when you witness like two animals going at it, or like if you happen to witness, you know, like an animal going after its prey and getting its prey, and seeing that kind of like violence in nature and that kind of like chaos in its own thing, and how like an animal would run up and hunt its prey and, you know what I mean, eviscerate it and do its thing. You know what I mean? That's a pretty scary thing, you know what I mean, for most people in the world to see. You know what I mean? So that is actually a pretty humbling thing in itself. You know what I mean? Because somebody would, you know what I mean? It's like a tragedy. It carries a lot of pain and anguish. There's a lot of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of violence in the gore, but it's humbling. It puts us in a perspective and in a place And it kind of reminds us of our mortality, you know what I mean? Because we kind of tend to get mixed up, especially in today's age, where we're like, think that we're invincible almost, you know what I mean? Sometimes we need to remember we're the same thing as that. We're that same flesh, you know what I mean? It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's a dangerous place. And the fact that we can exist and we can create safety and stuff around us, like physically, you know what I mean? Protect us from the environment. You know what I mean? We're very, we're very, like, susceptible things to the environment. We've changed that way because we have a basis on our technology and our ability to completely change this environment. But when you look at animals, they're really tough. They're a lot tougher than we are. You know what I mean? They exist out there in that. We don't anymore. Every single one of us is on a different level of intelligence and connection to the cosmos and to the earth. And I think the animals just speak for the earth. I think, you know what I mean? That's why they're here. They speak for the earth. We just have a different level of mastery, consciousness, man. You know what I mean? And I definitely think that, oh no, but the whole older brother thing, that's actually something that I learned when I was in North Dakota at the No Dapple protest, John. When I talked to them, that's what they said, that because the buffalo is their older brother, and because that's like they provide for them, you know what I mean? Like in the winter, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to grow enough stuff to make it last, and even when you do grow enough, you know what I mean? More people are going to be coming along anyway. Like, you have to have a livestock to survive. You have to be able to, you know what I mean, have something that's going to survive all the way through the winter that you could, you know, eat. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
That is the reason that we exist today, because we've adapted to that. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's wrong. But like I said, it's definitely like a boundary. It's definitely a fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I like, sorry if you don't mind me jumping in, Kyle.
Oh no, yeah, you're good. You're good.
That's good. I like what you were saying there again about like the toughness of animals. I think that's so true, is that animals are just incredibly versatile. And you're right, like any other animal, they adapt to their environment. Whereas we as humans, we take the often alternative route where we adapt our environment to us. You know, like it's just like, oh, I can't survive out in the woods. I know, I'll build a house, you know, I'll build a comfort and stuff like that. Whereas like animals will just like, well, looks like we'll just have to survive this monsoon season. Yet even still, they'll probably like build like some sort of like actual like comfort for themselves as much as they can.
They'll hunker down one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. They do what they need to survive. And again, like this is where I think you get to this idea that animals are by nature very intuitive. They're very close to source. They're very, you know, like whereas we as humans, we often get into this place where we our higher cognitive abilities, the neocortex at the very least, if we just want to think about it as that, often gives us this ability of what we can recognize as free will. Yet it is also this opportunity to sort of doubt our intuition. Yet I feel that animals don't necessarily do that. They don't really sort of doubt. They kind of have this like innate instinct that kind of comes through them. And this is where it gets really interesting, because again, it's like, what is consciousness? Like consciousness, if I'll just try taking a crack at it here, consciousness is kind of like the intelligence of the universe that can come through a variety of vessels and vehicles, so to speak. So again, the big thing within my own shift in consciousness, and we'll pass it around in a second, and this is simple, but I'm stating the obvious, was like the moment when, and I remember like this happening, because I didn't see it like this all the time, but I remember at some point where I was just like looking into either the animal, like the eyes of either my dogs or like the eyes of, you know, even like a livestock or something. And I'm just like, very interesting. Like they have the same eyes as us, you know, like, and that's always like that moment where the eyes, they're not just like these things in our head. I feel that they're like almost like energetic portals, so that when you're connecting with the eyes of another being, you're literally seeing yourself in them. You're seeing the consciousness, you're seeing the universe coming through in them. And there's this very humbling experience that comes out of this. I felt like I almost had like a question I wanted to throw in Raini's direction. I'm not exactly sure what question that was going to be, but maybe yeah, Raini, maybe I just kind of want to ask you, like, what do you like in terms of like the intelligence within animals? Like, how do you sort of like see that coming through within like a variety of creatures and stuff? I know it's a very general question. Raini, if you're there, I'm just going to pull up your microphone, or anything else you just want to say. I just kind of felt called to passing it over to you.
Sure, yeah. I feel like every animal, I feel like any living being, whether it be plant or animal, has some level of consciousness. So let's say a plant, like a blade of grass, obviously does not have the same sort of consciousness as, say, a human, simply because it does not have the internal structure to allow it to have the same sort of experience. Like, it does not have eyeballs, it does not have teeth, it does not have ears or nose to smell or hear, you know. But it does have the ability to sense, and that's been proven. It has the ability to sense. It may not have the ability to feel pain, but it does have the ability to react to stimuli. And so if we're looking at, say, a blade of grass versus a human, everything in between, I do believe humans are one of the most are a very special species. So I guess that's a bit of ego for me to put us at the very apex like that. But I'm just trying to say, like, yes, there are beings in between, say, I don't know, a mosquito or something that obviously has a less of a processing power than our huge human brain, right? So I think everything has consciousness. Everything has a soul. It has a being that is inhabiting its body and experiencing what it is experiencing. But I do believe that the experience definitely varies from animal to animal. But with the things that really matter, which I believe is sort of like love for its family, pain, feeling pain, running away from pain or threat, building shelter or seeking shelter, you know, nestling up to its mother to suck its the breast milk, or to you know, as all mammals do that. I think we have, like I said in the beginning, way more in common with animals than we don't, and I think that is often overlooked. And we, as I did a moment ago, like to put ourselves on a pedestal and say we are the absolute apex of evolution, and we have every right to do anything on this planet simply because we have the opposable thumbs to get it done. We have every right to do everything terrible and great on this planet, and I don't think that's necessarily right. I think we, with great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility, and I think we as humans are not taking that responsibility seriously, or even at all, as we seem to think that we are entitled to whatever we want to do. I'm kind of taking that question off on a real big tangent there, but I think, yeah, man, I think all animals are extremely conscious, more so than we probably believe. As I forget his name, he was talking about bird calls, and yeah, man, just because we can't understand the language of the animal does not mean that animal is unintelligent, as we humans do to each other. We often go through xenophobia or racism or whatever, simply because we can't understand, or we don't understand something about another race. We tend to label them as subhuman. or as animal, as we have done to many races. We call them, we use derogatory animal names to call, as African Americans, we're called monkeys and terrible shit like that. So we tend to subhumanize. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this, but I think animals are extremely conscious, and they deserve respect, and they deserve to be free living beings, and to have their own life, and to live their own life, and to not be caged or end their life prematurely, especially from, fuck, I'm taking this in a whole vegan agenda sort of direction, but that's me. So yeah, man, animals are conscious, animals feel pain, animals are amazing.
Animals are amazing. I dig it, man. Totally, dude. Yeah, man. And yeah, just kind of like going off what you were saying there, and thank you, Raini. Just going back to the consciousness thing, you know, I just kind of want to explain this in a little bit of a different way, and then I'm going to read a comment from the live chat, and then we're going to pass it over to Kat. She'll be able to introduce herself, and then we also have Pandora, who's in here, and there might be a couple other people joining as we go. I think in some ways, you know, again, we sort of like value the worth of a sentient being based on the level of their consciousness, so to speak. But I feel as if like consciousness isn't something that is like some sort of quantitative mass that is inside of a being, but rather consciousness is like almost like a flow of water that is constantly going through a being. And so that being can be thought of as almost like a computer, like a processor, kind of what you were saying, Raini, and even Bryan was kind of alluding to this. And so like that's kind of the idea, is that consciousness is this thing that kind of exists everywhere. It exists outside and inside, and then it flows through, and then based on the dynamics and the intricacy of that vehicle, it allows the consciousness sort of be like displayed through the characteristics of that being. So yes, in the same way, that's what you were saying, Raini, is that like grass is conscious in its own way because there's consciousness going through it, but the instruments inside the dynamics of grass molecular compounds and structures allows this consciousness to exhibit its characteristics in different ways, as well as with different animals and stuff like that. So absolutely, again, this is all going back to this idea of, you know, like, yes, we are all interconnected, and as you know, as common and cliche as that is, it's just important to be able to again, not only practice having these conversations here, but to continue these conversations out into the bigger public spheres, because as we were kind of saying, it's weird because so many people have been brainwashed into this disconnection between themselves and animals. They have been led this story that they see as the primary narrative that, again, is a very ego-driven, and animals are here for food. They're here for, you know, our labor and things like that. They're just pets. They're there for our amusement. These are constant narratives that we're being subjected to, and it takes a lot of effort to kind of shift that paradigm, to go outside that box, to think for yourself, and to, again, experience this for yourself. And one of the great ways to do that is by like having an intimate connection with an animal, and that's something that we're all fortunate enough to have. We're all fortunate enough to have that through you know, a lot of experience with pets and everything. A lot of us, like, you know, why do humans always want to have pets and stuff like that? It's not like the animals are literally just there for their entertainment, but it's because they develop an emotional connection, and they actually develop a relationship, and they actually develop love between themselves and this animal, because, again, you know, it becomes their family, it becomes their friend, it becomes their brother, their sister, it becomes their equal in a lot of ways. And I think so, again, as we kind of get into this topic, we can look at the different types of animals and what some of the different types of animals can actually teach us. So again, you know, we can talk about doggos, we can talk about catos, we can talk about wolfos, and some of the other things I was just talking about. We can talk about, like, you know, like flamingos. They have very interesting breeding habits. We can talk about apes. We can talk about the bonobo monkeys. The bonobo monkeys are kind of like the lesser known, we'll get into this a little bit later, but in a lot of ways, people say we evolved from like chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are kind of like, if relative to the bonobo, this is one thing that somebody kind of explained to me once. The chimpanzees, or the apes, or whatever we kind of say that we're evolved from, so to speak, if we're using that narrative, they're kind of like this very sort of like, if I could use the general term of like a male energy, sort of like that kind of like stern, rigid, survival type kind of, I'm not explaining it the best way I can, but the bonobos are these other monkeys that are very much similar, yet they exhibit different characteristic traits. They're like a very much more kind of like friendly and intuitive, and very much almost like the female side of like the chimpanzee, like, you know, things were kind of evolving, and one thing went to apes and one thing went to bonobos. And the bonobos just kind of have like their own sort of exhibited intelligence. That's a little bit different from the chimpanzees. So if you haven't heard of bonobo monkeys, just kind of take a look at those. And if you're looking for just good resources in general, you know, like how can I see more of the consciousness around me? Rather than going to a zoo or something like that, go watch a documentary like Planet Earth. Planet Earth 2. Those are great documentaries that show some amazing examples of all the different species and the intelligence and the consciousness that we have here on this Earth. And, you know, again, beyond this topic, we can expand it, you know, like what do animals look like outside of this planet? Like are animals, again, you know, animals / humans, something that could exist on other planets? Let's try and imagine, you know, how would an animal appear on another planet? So again, that's kind of getting out there and stuff. So I just kind of want to read a comment here from the live chat, and then I'm going to pass over to Kat to do her introduction to anything they want to talk about. And Maxie was saying, he said, Maxie was saying, they were saying, wouldn't animals be closer to elemental beings, especially amphibians? Maybe they are advanced forms of primordial elemental characteristics. So I thought that was really cool because, again, I think we see that, and that's something that within the bigger picture of things, we forget that we as humans literally are this compilation of the elements: earth, wind, water, fire, and ether, spirit, so to speak. And you know, again, we kind of like are this encapsulated totality of a nice balance of all the elements, so to speak. Yet within the animal kingdom, we obviously see different animals that are very innately and intimately close to specific elements. You know, you have the fish that are in the sea, you have the birds that are in the air, you have the insects and the other like types of mammals that live like under the ground. Do we have animals that would exhibit fire in a sense? That's kind of, you know, I'm just kind of thinking that off the top of my head. But again, you know, it's like, it's not too different from Pokemon, if we want to think about it that way. You know, the Pokemon were always about like the elementals and stuff. So again, it's just kind of interesting because you start to see this spiritual value behind what the animals carry with them. And this is where you start to get into like the ancient teachings and the native teachings, that each and every animal is actually a teacher. Each and every animal exhibits a specific characteristic in a nature that we can learn from. And in a lot of ways, this is kind of a bigger theory. Let's assume, just to play with it, that maybe in past lives, each of us have actually lived as different animals. And maybe as we kind of like evolved into this human form, like maybe some of us bring with us a bit of those characteristics into our nature and stuff. So again, you know, like I always, for me personally, I talk about my relationship with a wolf and stuff. And as much as I can say like, oh, maybe I was part wolf, maybe not, I don't know. I can equally say I can look to the wolf as a teacher by learning from it and studying its nature. So within this broadcast, I'd love to take a look at some specific examples of animals and what are some of their teachings, what are some of their characteristics that we can actually learn from. Another thing that I did want to get into later into this broadcast is again, just like the one thing that we can learn from animals very intimately is some of the stuff that we don't always want to look at, but it's literally the topic of death. And this is where, you know, again, like Raini was kind of talking about this and stuff like that. And I wanted to have our friend Abby on the show. Abby is a super awesome activist, and I'll make sure that you guys can check her out on the Paradigm Central website. She's under the Patreons, but she like goes out of her way to go to vigils. Vigils are where they go to like stand outside of slaughterhouses, and then that's when the animals are coming in on the trucks, and they bear witness to them before they go into the slaughter and stuff. And so again, you know, like when you're seeing an animal like that close to death, or like that sort of like fear state, that like just brings it to a whole nother visceral level. Or if you're with an animal, as many of us experience through having pets, when you have to like put them down and stuff like that, like there's a huge lesson in that when you can sort of be with them, and the consciousness kind of like comes and goes and stuff like that. So I mean, without having to get into like super heavy themes in this moment, I do just want to say that, yeah, we can talk about that. We can talk about that within this broadcast, because there's an infinite amount of ways that animals are here to teach us. And I think, again, that's the important thing, is like, step back. What are they teaching us? you know, there's a lot to talk about. So let's keep bouncing around, and we'll pass it over to Kat. So Kat, if you're there, I'm just going to bring up your microphone, and you can just introduce yourself by just saying who you are, where you're from if you want, and just kind of like what brings you to this topic, and maybe why is it of interest to you, and anything else you want to say. So Kat, go ahead and pulling up your microphone now. So whenever you're ready.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, it sounds okay.
Okay, good. Wasn't sure because I have my headphones in right now. So I guess I come with a lot of questions more than like answers, but I definitely am interested in this because I've always felt a strong connection to animals just by having a lot of pets as a kid. I feel like I've had like so many different pets growing up. Like I've went through like a dog, I've had a cat, I've had frogs, I've had a lizard, I've had a rabbit. Like I've had so many different types of pets. So I got to grow up with animals, and I got to like work on farms before and get to experience like what animals are like when they're living in that scenario. So for me, I like understanding a deeper symbiotic relationship with like the symbiotic relationship between like humankind and animals, and how that's always been like this thing that's happened and existed. And kind of, I think the biggest thing I'm really curious about and just understanding is the role in which animals have on humans' lives, and the roles that which animals have on human lives, and how that like factors into growth and healing. I was just out like a few hours ago, and I saw a man with his service dog, and just being able to like witness that, knowing that I was going to come and talk about this today, kind of reminded me of that. Just seeing that, like, whether or not you have like a physical disability or you need assistance, like animals have like such a profound healing on us, and it's vice versa. Like it applies to both ways. I know I've definitely witnessed a lot of through my own pets. Yeah, and I'm kind of interested in talking about a bit about stuff that we already touched on around like different levels of consciousness within different types of animals, like not just animals that are mammals, but animals that like insects and bugs, and why we tend to like separate consciousness and why we tend to favor one over the other. You know, like I went camping recently, I was with a couple friends, and I noticed that like one of my friends was about to kill a spider, and I was like, no, don't do that. Why would you do that? Just because it's small and it can't perceive things in the same way. So I think it's really interesting, Brendon, like you were saying, how we have like these narratives of like what animals mean to us. So I'm kind of interested in hearing about what everyone else has to say, and any thoughts and ideas. I'm interested in learning about like what people have to say about diet and animals. I'm interested in kind of talking about like the innate knowledge that animals have within them, like in order to survive and kind of navigate throughout their own world. Prime example being like this bird's nest that I ended up gathering in my front lawn the other day. Yeah, it's just really fascinating to be able to see like how animals just innately know how to create something. It's in their programming. And of course humans have that too, but we also have to like kind of focus a lot and try to figure things out. And yeah, I'm not really sure, but there's a lot I want to hear about. And yeah, just excited to be here.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you, Kat, for joining. And yeah, absolutely. Like one thing in just kind of like with what you were talking about there, again, just kind of like summarizing a lot of what we were talking about as well. One thing that somebody was just saying in the live chat, and I'll just kind of put this out there, and then we'll kind of we'll get into Pandora, and then we'll kind of get into some more general questions, is the idea of, is animal consciousness evolving alongside human consciousness? So I think that in itself is like a really rich question, right? Because it's just like, okay, we acknowledge that like we are changing, we as humans are changing. Are animals changing? Are animals like actually becoming in some ways like more self-aware? Like what does it mean for them to be sort of like, for their consciousness to be shifting as well? Like is it possible, you know, and I'm just asking this, is it possible for, you know, an animal to kind of have its own spiritual awakening, its own spiritual revelation? And you know, first thing that comes to mind is I just imagine the consciousness of a bear. and bears like are, again, you know, like very intelligent beings, and one of the things that they are known to do is actually to eat like psychedelic mushrooms. And so I think it's very just, again, trying to imagine the consciousness of a bear, and even not just bears, there's other animals, there's like foxes and stuff that do this too. But imagine just, you know, like an animal kind of like in a psychedelic state and just being able to comprehend, because and this is just kind of, again, I'm just kind of thinking of it as we go. We, you know, our self-talk, when we think to ourselves, there's like a voice that's inside of our head. What do animals have, right? Like they must have their own voice. And like, what language does that talk in, so to speak, you know? Like we're kind of sitting there and we're just like thinking about things, and we can hear this like English talking voice. Like, does a dog think in barks, or does it think in emotions, or does it think in like varying degrees of yes and no's and maybes and stuff like that? Again, it's just I'm just kind of posing these questions because I think a big part of this topic and the concept of animals is that there is a mystery to it, and that's a good thing because that continues to drive us forward. And I feel like it is something that we are continuing to want to learn more about. Even just like in the idea of, again, this is just kind of a side topic, but the idea of animals dreaming is, again, another thing that I think is worth paying attention to. We see animals dreaming. We see there's something going on. So if we're talking about the bigger idea of when we dream, like a common thing we talk about within Paradigm Shift Central is the concept of like, yeah, your physical body's lying down, but then like your spiritual body, your astral body is literally like in the higher dimensional planes, the astral planes, and it's doing things and it's creating and it's learning. Do animals do that too? And I feel like they do. Maybe not necessarily all animals, because I feel that ability is kind of like coinciding with the ability of the vehicle to begin with. You know, do insects dream? Maybe not. Maybe because like the processing of that computer that they're in, the body they're in, isn't really meant for it, so to speak. Whereas like perhaps dreams are only inside beings that are like able to benefit from dreams. Therefore, do dogs learn from within their dreams? And again, like, do cats dream? And I think one thing that we can kind of see is, and this is just an idea, is that I swear some cats are like, I guarantee you there are some cats here on Earth who are probably like ascended masters, and they probably like lived a life as a human, and then they came back as a cat, and they were just like, yeah, I'm just gonna like chill out as a cat and sleep all day, and then when I dream about things, I'm actually going to dream about being like a human or any other, like a person or any other sort of being, and not necessarily a cat. Like, this is where you start getting into this idea, because like I swear cats are super freaking intelligent. If you just kind of like see one sitting there, I think it's pretty obvious. And who knows, maybe in the future we'll be able to more actively open. This is an interesting question. Are there ways we're moving towards that will be able to open up actual dialogue and conversation between ourselves and other animals you know, be it through technology or maybe some sort of psychedelic experience? Like, if you were, oh my God, okay, sorry, I'm just like throwing all these ideas out there. What if you were to do mushrooms with a bear? What if you were to do mushrooms with a friendly bear, and you were to sit across from him and meditate with that bear and do eye gazing? Would you be able to like psychically communicate with that bear? Because people talk about being able to have like psychic communication when they're on mushrooms with other people on mushrooms. Is that something we as humans have yet to explore? Is that something that we can be open to? And again, I feel like even the natives, whether it was through a psychedelic experience, they had their own form of communicating with the animals. They would recognize the language of the universe through the animals' movements. You know, when like when the animals were migrating, that would mean that something was happening, or anyway, sort of like that. So yeah, I think looking into how we can establish better relationship and communications with animals is very important, because anything that we do on our individual personal scale is actually being like inputted into the collective totality as a whole. So yeah, see if you can like get a chance to like connect with some sort of animal, be it a pet, be it, you know, like a cow at a farm, be it a horse or something like that. Just kind of open up to that, because maybe all we need to do is show the animals that we're listening, and maybe then they'll start talking to us. Maybe they're waiting for us. Maybe we're not waiting for them. So just a couple ideas there. Yeah, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. If you guys are tuned in live, it's 11:11 on the clock, and we'll keep bouncing around. Let's just take a quick, simple breath to just kind of get into a little bit of a moment of oneness, and then we're going to pass the talking stick over to Pandora, and we're going to keep the conversation going. So just inviting you guys to do a micro meditation here and just connect with your breath. I'm not going to really guide you through this, but just allow yourself to connect with the idea of being connected to animals, seeing them as equal, seeing them as consciousness. So just take a couple moments here, gentle breaths, connect to this moment of oneness. Go ahead. Just one more breath. Good. And continue to allow your breath to naturally unfold. Gently bring your awareness back to the circle. Awesome. So we'll pass the talking stick around. Oh, it looks like Pandora actually dropped, but if they're back, we'll get them back in to introduce themselves in a second. But yeah, so another thing that just came to mind, and after this, let's just open up the conversation wherever, and we'll co-create it. Are there some animals that meditate? You know, like I'm just thinking this out loud, and I'm thinking like, are there times when we see animals literally appreciating sort of like the aesthetics of the reality around them? So what I mean by this is, do we ever see animals like watching sunrises or watching sunsets? Do animals recognize beauty? Do they appreciate beauty in the same way? This is just an interesting question, you know, and I feel exploring that kind of opens up some interesting doors. So, okay, guys, I'm just going to allow the microphones just kind of be opened up. So, yeah, if anybody has any sort of particular topics that they just kind of want to bring into the discussion circle, please feel free to do that. I know, Bryan, you had some points that you wanted to throw in the chat. So, Bryan, if you want, we can pass it to you. And then,
everyone's welcome to interrupt at any point. I don't mind at all.
Okay, go ahead, Bryan. And then, guys, as long as we're not just talking over each other, just kind of either raise your hand or leave a comment in the chat, and we'll moderate it as best we can. Bryan, go right ahead, man.
Okay, so I think with animals, like, they don't have the quick chirpness that we have with the memes that are words, you know? Like, they have their own language, but it's much more singing. So whales, you know, swoon or sing very slowly and have pitch and everything, but we talk chirp, 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 and you know exactly what I'm saying. You know, it's as clear as it can be to our understanding of the word. So I think with animals, they can read emotions and they read gestures a lot better too. Like my cat will stare at me and know what I'm thinking, and I don't even know what I'm thinking half the time. I think about our consciousness, and I question like how susceptible we are as animals. I noticed in advertising in terms of psychology, like in the 1920s, during the roaring 20s, most of the products in the capitalistic society we lived in had advertisements of functionality and durability, reasons you would actually want to buy a product, or, you know, just, yeah. But in the 1950s, there was this scientist, this guy, this psychologist, that his name began with a W, and I'm sure a psychologist right now knows the name, but it has to deal with sexuality in advertising, and that is our animal instincts. And if you look at it today, look at a gum commercial, a booze commercial, a cigarette commercial, and a magazine ad or on a radio station, you know, just the catchy tune, "You should be driving a Kia," is playing all the time on the radio over here, and it's interesting how we're susceptible to fall into the trap of wanting the void, you know? And I don't want to be so negative. I'm going to go on from there. Just, you know, I'm welcoming anyone to talk about these subjects and bounce back ideas. And with everyone else's subjects, I'm writing down everything as I'm going along. So adaptation, we're all in this field together. Bonobos are apes, and it's cool. Like, we're all existing. So it's a thought process to really think about. If you are the last in your succession, if you're the last male or female, you know, you didn't have kids, you are the last male or female in that branch of existence. And so you're the last animal to exist in that existence. like in terms of current consciousness. I'm fascinated by DNA. It's its own language, and there's hiccups in our DNA. If you cause a problem in DNA, ordinarily, like it causes cancer, or at birth, it can cause physical handicaps. With also DNA, we evolved to accept viruses. There was a study done on flies. I think they're just ordinary house flies. I got another study on fruit flies I want to talk about. I'll talk about some other time, but the flies I want to talk about. I'll talk about the fruit flies first. There was a study of this black licorice smell that the fruit flies were put into tubes, and there was the fork in the road in the tubes. And one side of the tube allowed them to go to the black licorice smell. The other side of the tube let them just exist in a neutral smell. The first generation of fruit flies went to the black licorice smell, and they were electrocuted mildly. They weren't hurt supposedly, but in science, a lot of animals are hurt, unfortunately, with the animal cruelty. But, the next step after that was the next generation of fruit flies. They kept doing it generation after generation, so memories were actually learned in the DNA from this study, and there's proof of it. And then another thing that we have to consider with animals and the flies, too, is in the fly DNA, the housefly DNA I was talking about earlier, they found this virus in the DNA, and they didn't understand why it existed. And they figured out ultimately that that this fly incorporated the virus in its DNA in order to survive. And so with us, we have that same fly virus DNA, and it's a common ancestor is what we found out. And that's what's kind of mind-blowing about the whole thing is like life existed, I think, for 1 billion years on this planet. Or no. Yeah, I think it's 1 billion years, and I think our planet's existed for 4 billion years. And life, it's crazy how we actually cause differences on our planet. We have just recently caused with climate change this higher carbon dioxide, and that's mostly caused by methane and nitrous oxides from livestock more so than it is automobiles. But yeah, that's about all the notes I have for now. I can keep talking. I have other notes too, but I didn't look at them. But anyone who wants to jump in can jump right in.
Thank you, Bryan. I'll just say real quick, I'm a big fan of the point that you mentioned about how learned habits and traits are passed on through DNA. I think just the idea that we can actually observe that within animals gives more credence to the fact that it is happening with us as humans. So again, like we as humans, like we evolve like physically in subtle ways. We evolve spiritually in subtle yet sometimes more obvious ways. And yet we're also evolving through social patterns. So again, like in a lot of ways, our sort of unconsciousness and our selfishness and our ego prime nature is something that has kind of been encoded into our DNA that's been passed on. But we have the opportunity to change that even within this lifetime alone to be able to affect that within future generations. Because, yeah, it's very interesting just like how the instincts of an animal are already there when they're born. They already know like the subtle things of like how to, like a deer when it is born, it like comes out walking basically.
It knows how to walk. Exactly. I agree with you. And what's crazy about us is that we are the first animals to be, we're almost marsupials. We're mammals, don't get me wrong. And marsupials are a type of mammal, and oftentimes most of the marsupials are in Australia because that's how they evolved. That branch evolved that way. There's koalas, kangaroos, wallabies, wombats, so on and so forth. On our side, there's just like the ugly possum in North America, and there are cuter possums in Europe, from my understanding. But our minds are not developed when we're born because we have such large brains. They're mush when we're born. They literally, our skulls aren't even formed properly yet. So we're underdeveloped when we're born. We aren't able to talk or walk. And basically, after our first year of existence, you look at a giraffe, it has to know how to run its first day or it will die. So we have a very different culture. It's not just the Homo sapiens. It's what's before us, the culture that existed before us, too, the villages. Because in order for babies to be evolved to be so weak when they're born, then that's another topic. I'm sorry. My mind's scattered everywhere. I had so much caffeine. But cuteness in animals.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That is a thing, and it's usually with the young. It's usually with certain animals that we find have attributing factors to it, like dogs or cats or whatever, parrots or whatever. Those are what we keep as pets. But the cuteness of animals is a survival technique deep ingrained in our instincts to actually take care of. You know what I'm saying? So let me look. I'm willing to pass the mic, but I do have other things I can talk about.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, let's save them, and those are some key points there. Absolutely, man. Awesome. Sweet. Okay. I was just gonna say one thing as we're kind of doing this, and I know we're kind of, you know, there's a lot of topics that are kind of happening parallel to each other here. I just want to mention one thing, and then just opening up the conversation to anything else you guys want to add in or any questions you might have for the group and stuff. There's a comment in the live chat, and someone was just mentioning the 100th monkey effect relative to the DNA changing. So again, you know, that's the thing. That's an idea that we observe that is not just something within animals, but is something within humans. And again, I think a lot of people are familiar with the 100th monkey effect, the idea that there's like 2 islands with monkeys on them separated by water, and then on one island the monkeys learn how to use tools to like open coconuts or clean coconuts and stuff, and then the other island of monkeys learns how to do this within like their own like timeline without actually physically being in like correlation to the first monkeys. So it's almost as if like it was as one group learned it kind of went into the collective conscious cloud, and then it came into the other culture of monkeys as well. So again, it's just kind of going back to that interconnectedness. As we learn things as humans, it goes beyond you know, just like the physical notion of teaching things. It's almost like a subtle thing that kind of just begins to come through us culturally. I wanted to go back to the bonobos though. One of the things I was talking about with the bonobos, so again, bonobos are still a type of ape, but they're a different type of ape than what we're used to. We don't really see much about them. And I think it's interesting that we don't see much about them, because what's different about bonobos is that with the bonobos, the females are actually in charge. And the females, if there's like a male chimp among the bonobos who who may be getting out of line or harassing a female, all the other females gang up on that male bonobo. And so it's like this idea of like, you know, like solidarity and leadership, and the bonobos are very affectionate. They're very like polyamorous, if that's the right term for bonobos. They're like very like promiscuous and stuff, and like sex and food is like a big part of their lifestyle and everything. But they also have like a very dynamic and a rich structure to the way that they live. Again, that I feel is very much something that just by observing it, we can start to kind of like see other patterns within culture and stuff. So I wanted to get stuff later. I wanted to talk a little bit more about like wolves and everything. There's something I've mentioned in other broadcasts about like the teachings of the wolf and stuff, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So just opening up the discussion circle. So anybody who wants to take the talking stick, please feel free to do so at this point. So I'll just kind of pull the microphones up, or you guys can just kind of raise your hand so I can see if anybody wants to say anything. So either Jam, Cat, or Raini. Raini, go ahead. Anybody else jump in after? Go ahead, Raini.
Well, I don't know exactly what I want to talk about, but I guess I'll talk about the bonobos and chimps and stuff, because I think they're obviously the closest to us, and we can learn a lot from them because of that. Not that we can't from other animals, but like you said, they live in a matriarchy, so they have the females leading the pack, and chimpanzees live in a patriarchy, and they have the males leading the pack. And like you said, the bonobos are much more peaceful, and the chimpanzees are much more aggressive and much more violent, and they eat much more animal flesh, and they have rituals where they're really quite violent, and I would argue illogical. And I think that's something that we suffer from, not necessarily because we live in a patriarchy, but I think that there's something that's been written in basically virtually every culture on the planet, saying that the patriarchy and the aggressive nature of humans, and the very illogical and superstitious and violent, and just incredibly violent nature of humans is largely due to the fact that our brains are literally shrinking, and our ability to really use our brains in the way that they may be meant to be used. Basically, we're using only the part of our brains that is extremely left brain, extremely violent and competitive. It's like our brains are devolving a mammalian, simplistic neocortex that we often pride ourselves to say that we have evolved past into compassion and empathy and all these things that we attribute to being human. I know that was probably hard to follow, but I've been working with this independent researcher. His name is Tony Wright, and he is basically the human brain and the developmental windows of the human neural system and how we began to grow such a large brain and why for the last 200,000 years shrinking. And this does parallel a little bit in the bonobo and chimpanzee paradigm, but I think that's just sort of a validation that it's happening to other species. Basically, I believe, and there's tons of data to support this, that this is all happening to us because we left the Garden of Eden or the forests of Africa or the place for evolution for millions of years to live elsewhere, and thus our diet changed and our lifestyle changed, and we became more competitive because our environment was much more harsh. But the main thing is that we stopped eating the diet that we evolved on for millions of years, which is essentially a frugivorous fruit-based diet. And this is why our closest relatives are the bonobos and the chimpanzees, who eat primarily fruit and primarily greens, and they obviously have a similar digestive system and physiology as we do. But what I'm trying to get into is that I think it's not only extremely important that I think the reason that sorry about all this noise, I had to find Wi-Fi because I ran out of data and I'm right next to the street, but I think the reason that we feel compassion towards animals and feel this oneness towards other animals is because that is our original state of mind. That's the state of mind that we developed in millions of years through a symbiotic relationship, through plants, through our environment, with animals. I believe we had a symbiotic relationship for the vast majority of our existence, evolving into humans, and the last 200,000 years that we have been deviating from our original symbiotic relationship and diet, our brains have actually been shrinking. We've literally lost, this isn't something I believe, we've literally lost about a tennis ball's worth of area of brain in our skulls. Our skulls have shrunk about the area of a tennis ball in the last 200,000 years. And if you look at every culture on the planet, they tell stories about our devolution, basically, our degeneration into a much more aggressive, violent species, a much more mammalian, competitive-based species. And I think this is a very, very serious issue. I think this is something that needs to be addressed extremely timely issue, because sorry, I forgot his name again. He mentioned that the leading cause of climate change right now is cow farts. It's the animal agriculture industry. That's the leading, like all these cars around me, all the boats and planes and everything, they don't touch the animal agricultural industry. And if this is a diet that we're naturally supposed to be eating, we should be finding that it's an ecological diet. And you could argue that we're just overpopulated, but the truth is we could, we could live through permaculture and fruits and vegetable diet, a much healthier diet for the planet and for the humans, and we wouldn't be having any of these problems that we're having now. And we could live in a very narrow band. Everybody could live in a fucking tropical paradise, and we could live with sustainable technology. All we have to do is stop eating animals. All we have to do is use this compassion that we like to tell ourselves that we have evolved, that we're this great, compassionate animal, and use it as innocent, voiceless beings on the planet. And we'll gain the benefit of amazing health. We'll gain the benefit of ending the environmental destruction on the planet, and the animals will gain not being thrown into cages and having their throat slit and being forcibly impregnated and having their children taken away from them so we can drink their breast milk. And it's absolute insanity what we're doing here, and it's destroying the planet and ourselves and obviously the animals. And that is, I think, like, if we want to talk about animal consciousness and all these amazing things animals do, we had better stop eating them, because if we want to appreciate something, we can't be killing things. Like, people say that they're animal lovers, but then they go eat animals 3 times a day, and the fact of the matter is they're pet lovers. And the reason that is because they've gained a relationship with these animals, and therefore they like them, therefore they love them, therefore they have compassion and empathy for these animals. But I mean, it's hard for us to have a relationship with animals that are never shown to us and they're just thrown into the slaughterhouse, and they're served up on a plate, and we call it bacon instead of a piece of a pig's ass, or a piece of a cow's fucking leg. We use all these euphemisms to try to disconnect us from the fact that we're eating the decaying flesh of animals. And if you show any of these pictures or tell any child what we're doing to these animals when they're children, they will cry and they will become vegetarians on the fucking spot, and they will never allow themselves to be a part of this, and they'll be upset with their parents for making them a part of this. And we're compassionate beings from birth, and we're just brainwashed to do this shit. And I'm getting obviously really sick and tired of it. And the fact of the matter is we're brainwashed. So all these angry vegans that are really abrasive and really rude to other people, they need more compassion for people, because the fact of the matter is we've been brainwashed. We're not supposed to be eating these animals. We don't want to be eating these animals. Well, we think we have to, and we don't. It's the exact opposite. The Cancer Institute and the Diabetes Institute and all these institutes are in cahoots with the meat and dairy industries, and they know that diabetes is caused by a high fat and high protein diet. They know that cancer is caused by acrylamides and processed meats. They know that meat and dairy are killing us and causing these diseases. But if you look at their websites, they on their meal plans it says meat and eggs, meat, cheese, and fucking eggs. Every meal, you got to eat this shit because it has protein. It's this outdated propaganda that was created in the 50s from the meat and dairy industry, paying billions and billions of dollars for us to be eating these poor beings. And I'm sorry I've hijacked this and turned this into a vegan rant, but I'm really not sorry, because I, for 10 years, have sat back and been very soft and been very passive, and just kind of been an apologetic vegan, saying, oh, it's all right to do what we're doing. But no, we're destroying the planet. And if you look up any animal rights videos, you'll see that what we're doing is absolutely horrendous. And I know that you would not stand for it. I know everybody here is compassionate, and they have respect for beings for sentient life. And I'm sorry if this seems a bit harsh, but I think this needs to be spoken about, because it's the leading cause of whether you believe it or not that it's good for us, or whether you care about animals or not. It's the leading cause of environmental destruction. It's destroying our planet. So if we don't do it, basically all life on Earth is going to be very, very negatively affected, to the point where the vast majority of life on Earth could be wiped out, and billions of years of evolution could be absolutely just fucked. And if we want to get extremely selfish with it, in really cold various places of the Earth, and that's not going to be very comfortable in our own lifetimes. So the more that we, it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win situation, just to stop eating animals, for our compassion for the planet and the animals. Rant over.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think calling it a rant kind of undermines just like the amount of heart put into that, and I think it's it's an important thing, and I know you're a huge advocate of it, and you're a huge soldier for it. And I just want to say, I really appreciate you carrying that part of the shift, because again, like, there's so many different facets and avenues as to how this shift in consciousness is happening. But again, like, through the portal of our connection with the animals is such a key one. Like, so many people, before they even have like this spiritual sort of like awakening in that sense, a lot of people are coming into this awakening through their relationship to their food and through their relationships to animals and stuff like that. So again, by you just being a carrier for that message, I think it's inviting more people, because again, like, there's kind of phases with veganism and everything, but I think ultimately they do kind of all lead to the same place of like unity, oneness, and compassion. So again, like, that's super key, and dude, you're doing amazing things, and I think I just to put it out there and stuff like that, because I think there's kind of like two sides to the coin, and I'm sure people will have their opinions on it and everything. Like, are there points where it's appropriate to eat meat? If you're a native or something, and hunting was still like something that was meant to keep you alive, is that still, is that okay? Quote unquote okay, and everything like that. And I think just kind of like to put my own sort of understanding on it and stuff like that. I think there's a time and a place where, within the natural evolution of a species, where there may be points where like we eat what we need to survive. And this is the same we see with other animals. Other animals eat other animals because they need it, quote unquote, to survive. We have gotten to the point where now we have the privilege where we do not need it. Like, that's the big difference. That's the difference. So it's like, if we don't need it, then why are we having it? Well, it's because we're selfish, because we're ego driven, because we're addicted, and because we're brainwashed, as you were saying. But again, like, I think I just encourage everyone to, again, just be mindful, and if you are choosing to eat meat, just allow yourself to think about why you're choosing meat, because maybe I think in some cases with like working on progressing towards veganism, it's not something that literally just happens overnight. Not for everyone. For some people it does. So again, to be patient with ourselves and to understand that sometimes it takes a while to deprogram the programming that we've been indoctrinated to over the course of our years growing up in society. Like, for me, it took me several years to slowly begin eating less and less and less and less meat. Whereas now at the point, like, I can't say I never eat meat. It will still happen here and there, but it's not really something I like go out of my way for. And like, the rare times that it would happen, I guess it would be like if I was having like Hawaiian pizza or something. But again, like, I understand that even there is the option for me to choose not to. But again, that's still something for me to meditate on and stuff. But when I do it, I just make sure that I sort of like don't hide behind any sort of like facade as to sort of disconnecting what it is that I am partaking in. And I think, again, like, that's a big part of what the veganism thing is about, is that understanding simply by partaking in purchasing and eating meat, you are partaking basically in global Holocaust slaughter. You could use big words like that. So, I mean, you are part of that whether or not you want to be. So again, a lot of people will choose not to eat meat almost as a form of social protest, yet also as an act of compassion. And again, like that's why, you know, people need to know why people aren't eating meat, and there's many answers to that. I'll just say real quick, if anybody hasn't seen, there's a new movie that's come out. Again, these topics are like veganism has increased within the last decade a lot, thanks to people like Raini and everyone making YouTube videos. It's becoming very well known and talked about. And there was a recent movie that was released on Netflix called Okja, Okja, and it is basically the story about like a super pig. It's kind of like a fantasy, but it's still very realistic. So it's about like this genetically modified super pig, and it's about like this young girl in China, or Korea rather, and she develops a relationship with raising the pig, and then they take the pig to go get it slaughtered, and there's this whole adventure, but it basically like brings the viewer into a look inside what happens through the meat industry and the facade, and just like a lot of just like the corruption and just like the bullshit behind it. So again, you know, as our job as shifters, as people who are interested in shifting consciousness, it's good to be able to develop that vision, to be able to see through the bullshit, and to be able to see through, again, kind of what even Bryan was talking about earlier, you know, again, just like the propaganda that is being fed to us that is really targeting our own animalistic base nature and stuff. So again, as humans who have this higher degree of cognitive thinking, with that comes a duty and comes a responsibility to really be caretakers and guardians for the other sentient beings, and to, you know, again, be a voice for the voiceless. I think everything is unfolding on this earth exactly how it is meant to, whether or not it is bright, whether or not it is dark. A lot of it, again, is the darkness that brings to the surface the idea of us being able to acknowledge, no, this is not what I want, let's change it, and things like that. So unfortunately, it seems as if it was part of human nature to go through this amnesia process where we created this meat industry to eventually be able to move beyond it. But yeah, you know, just kind of thinking outside the box, I'd be very curious as to like what aliens, quote unquote, on other planets eat within their diet. I feel as if consciousness increases, it would naturally lead towards the idea of inflicting as less suffering as possible to any beings. And this is where you get into the idea of, yeah, you just grow fruit or create some sort of device that can, like, I mean, this is another thing, right? Like, we're moving towards a future where we're starting to be able to synthetically create meat. So some people are leaning towards that. Will that be something for everyone? Probably not necessarily. Again, even just like the texture of meat and stuff like that, I think it's weird, because a lot of the times people, they don't actually enjoy the taste of meat. They actually enjoy the taste of the sauces, and the sauces themselves are often plant-based. So like that in itself is just kind of funny and ironic. Passing the talking stick around, let's keep adding some more voices into the conversation. And thank you again for everyone tuned in. Please feel free to share this broadcast if you're tuned in live or afterwards. And if you're checking out any of the recordings, you can look up Paradigm Shift Radio on iTunes, and you can download them there, as well as on live.paradigmshiftcentral.com, and click the radio button, and you'll be able to see the past broadcasts through there if you are looking for those. So opening up, and again, for Raini's YouTube, it's Symbiotic Solutions, and I'll include a link in the show note. But maybe, Raini, just with what you were saying, and maybe just what I said, I just want to be able to pass it back to you if there's anything else you just wanted to say in response to that, and then we'll just pass it around some more. So if there was anything you wanted to say.
Yeah, man. Of course, you know me.
Go for it.
No, I'll try to not do that again, but...
It's cool. It's all practice. It's good. You're doing great.
Okja, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a good movie. I think it really touches on what I was saying about how we get a very special bond with the animals that we do come in contact with, and that says a lot about our innate compassion and love for animals. There's something called biophilia, which is obviously a term coined by a human, about our own love for nature. It's something ingrained inside of us, about our own. It's bio, as in life, philia, which is basically obsession with or love of, and it's not like necrophilia, that kind of love of, but it's like a deep appreciation of, you know. So we have this biophilia that connects us with life, makes us feel this. It's why we see flowers are beautiful. It's why we see animals are cute, and nature scenes as breathtaking. And Okja, I think, does a really good job of really showing that we have this beautiful love of animals. And so I'd really like to point out another documentary that just came out on another film that just came out on Netflix. It's a documentary called What the Health. I think it is one of the most influential documentaries on the entire planet. Whether or not veganism is something you're interested in, or it's educational as to why, as to how we've been manipulated and brainwashed, and where the propaganda is coming from, and what is actually healthy from us. Because no matter what path we're on, I think we all care about living a long life and living a happy, healthy life where we feel good and are able to use our bodies to their peak potential. And you know, and this documentary is extremely eye-opening and can help us learn a lot about what is good for us, after years and years of propaganda telling us what is good for us, when really it's the opposite. And I think it's related to animals because we find out that cholesterol and saturated fat in any level is really really unhealthy, and those are of course all animal products. So there was something I wanted to mention about what you were saying, Brendon. I don't remember what it was, but I really appreciate everybody. I'm sorry if I got a little crazy there, but it's all passion. It's all love. It's all coming from the right place. I hope you guys can see that, because I think there are too many vegans out there that are very harsh and very uncompassionate towards humans. There's a lot of misanthropy, a hatred towards humans coming from the vegan movement, and it's only hurting it. And a lot of egotism and a lot of really negative stuff coming from the vegan movement. And I'd like to do my best to be, I guess, an ambassador of another way of looking at this issue. And I think in the same way that Brendon is trying to do, it's all love, the light, it's all ending suffering. And I think that's a Buddhist belief. If I believe one religion almost to a whole, probably that about Buddhism, that life is about ending suffering or reducing suffering to the most. And this is a great way to end our own suffering through treating our bodies correctly, giving ourselves nourishment and love, and treating the planet respectively, and living an ecological lifestyle, and treating the animals respectively as our brothers and equals. So human power and animal power.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Sweet. All right. Thank you again, Raini. And yeah, absolutely. Again, you know, just kind of like stepping back here and reminding us, you know, the reason why we do these broadcasts is because, you know, people who are tuned into this broadcast, you know, as shifters, as people who are intentionally helping shift consciousness, allow these broadcasts to be collective inspiration for you to reflect on the ways that you want to help change the world. And one of the ways you can help change the world is just by being passionate and compassionate about, you know, like these types of topics, these ideas of just like either becoming and changing your diet, becoming vegan, or just like spreading the awareness of just like allowing people to think outside the box about how we think about animals and everything. I just wanted to read a comment from Anne, and then we'll keep passing the talk and stick around. Anne was just saying in the comments on YouTube, she was just saying for everyone should check out a person by the name of James Aspie. who is someone that perhaps Raini may already know, but she says he's a super peach of a human, the kindest, modest, patient vegan you'll find, but his passion is undeniable. He also talks a lot about meditation, is very inspiring. So I'm not sure if I've heard his videos or anything before, but I'll check him out. James Aspey, Aspey. Feel free to check that out if you guys got a chance. So yeah, a couple of things I was just going to mention, you know, within this broadcast, we'll keep things going. We may go till 1 a.m. since we started a little bit late, so that would be like 3 hours total for this broadcast, and we're just putting in as much as we can into this one broadcast, and it's all just practice. No rush or anything. One thing I wanted to get into a little bit later is, again, talking about the different ways as to how animals perceive this reality and how that can sort of open us up to altered states of consciousness, or just how consciousness naturally interacts within this reality to begin with, such as literally, you know, do other animals see things differently? You know, we can talk about them seeing energies differently, seeing like electromagnetic waves and gravitational waves differently. And yeah, that's just like one topic I want to talk about. I want to talk about like dolphins and stuff too. I want to talk more about wolves. I know I just want to be able to hear some of the things that you guys have to share. You know, what sort of animals are out there that have literally blown your mind? Because I feel like from watching the Planet Earth documentaries, it's amazing. You look at these animals and you're just like, wow, like that is so beautiful. Just their way of living, their way of existing. For example, the birds that why do I forget what the sterlings. I'm sure other birds do it too, but commonly the sterlings are the ones that you see that fly in this huge like cloud and swarm, and you see them and they're like this like one symbiotic organism. So again, you know, it's kind of like this thing is that we acknowledge ourselves as individual organisms, but we have to remember that together we are a collective organism. Together we are a collective body. You know, so again, humans are that way as well as animals are that way. They have a community. So again, when you see the sterlings flying in the sky, yeah, they're riding the winds, but what else is happening there? You know, what else is actually happening there on like an electromagnetic frequency between like between them like staying in contact with each other? But is there literally like a hive mind that is allowing them to sort of function as this giant organism, which to us as humans appears as this beautiful symbol for us to visually see, where it's like literally, you know, a million little birds looking like one giant organism just flowing through the sky. So look at videos of sterlings if you guys just want to meditate on those and trip some balls. So let's keep passing the talk and stick around, and just want to be able to open up the conversation. We haven't heard from Kat and Jam recently, so I just want to be able to allow either of them to jump back into the conversation. So I'm just going to pull up your microphones just a little bit. So if one of you guys wants to go next, just feel free to say anything at this point, and we'll pass the talking stick to you. So was that Kat? Kat, did you want to?
I'm going to jump in there because
Jam wants to. Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll let Jam jump in, and then if Kat wants to jump in after. Jam, go ahead if you got to head out. So.
Cool. Well, I'm going to check out all of those documentaries, and I saw Okja on Netflix. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. I just saw it come up, and it looked really interesting. So I'm going to check those out when I get a chance. But one thing that I keep thinking about that I want to talk about. I have an affinity with cats. That's my spirit animal. That's my connection. I have 3 cats. I used to have more, but a couple of them passed away recently. But about communicating with them, how they kind of communicate. And I think Bryan was touching on this about like body language and kind of stuff like that. And I don't remember where I saw it at, but it's like the Cat Whisperer or some stupid shit like that. But he was like, you know, they communicate with like facial expression. Like if they turn their butt towards you, it means they trust you, you know, and that's how they kind of communicate with each other. It's like, okay, you're a cool cat. I can kind of turn my back to you, and that's a sign of trust. And since I watched that, like I've been practicing like communicating with my cats and even like other cats in my old apartment, because there was a lot of strays around, and I would just bring out a bowl of food for them, and they would always run away, and then they'd see the food and they'd come up, and I'd kind of do the I don't know if you can see, but kind of the slow blink and then kind of half eyes closed, and that's like their symbol for I love you. And so I started doing that with my cats, and they would do it back. And even these stray cats that didn't trust people at all. But I mean, of course, if you put food out, they're going to kind of come up. But, you know, they kind of sit down a few feet away, And like I would just kind of stare at them, and like something about cats, like when you stare at their eyes, like you get really hypnotized, and you just stare. And I started doing the whole like kind of blinky, slow blink, saying I love you, kind of sending thoughts about, I love you, I'm not going to do anything to hurt you. I'm a cat ally, like, and their demeanor around you changes a whole lot. And I don't know, that's just something I kind of wanted to throw out there about communicating with cats, animals in general, I guess. But yeah.
Word, man. Looks like Rainey's got a response to that, and yeah, Jam, I love the demonstration of the slow eye blink. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't even know that, but I recently remember hearing that, how like that's actually recognized. Like, if you ever like, is it just cats or does it work with other animals? Like this slow eye blink thing, is it?
I think it's a cat thing, but I'm not exactly sure. I mean, you try it with other animals. I don't have any other animals around here to try it with, other than some squirrels and some bunny rabbits that are kind of around the wood area. But
yeah, slow eye blink. It's interesting that animals recognize that and stuff.
And they do it. Yeah, my cats do it back every time. Like,
really?
If they're not like in some other kind of like mode, like running around chasing something or going out to hunt or whatever they do, but if they're just kind of relaxed and I'm there, like I'll start doing the slow blinky eyes and they do it back, and it's cool.
Cool, man. Cool, dude. Thank you for sharing. And Jam, from myself and I'm sure everyone else in the community, condolences for recent loss and transition, for walking your cats across the Rainbow Bridge and everything like that. Again, that's something I was opening up talking to, because I know you guys have heard me talking about it, and like that's the thing, like, geez, guys, like every like few weeks on Facebook or less, you always hear someone talking about like having to put their animal down. But again, like that's a huge lesson that they teach us, even just about like resilience and courage and continuing to allow them to live on through the love that we share. And I'll just say this real quick and I'll pass it to Raini. When my dog Shelby passed away last year, one thing that we did, and I'll just mention without getting too much into the details, one thing that we did, and I just want to share this because maybe this will be something that other people can keep in mind. After Shelby passed away, who's my German Shepherd, he's like, my wolf buddy and everything. After he passed away, what we did is we bought a wind chime. And this wind chime is actually like it's like promoted as a wind chime to be like in memory of whatever, be it animal or human. But we got this wind chime so that now we have the wind chime hanging outside in our backyard. And through this, we opened up this idea that whenever the wind chime chimes, it's actually like Shelby like saying hello. So it's kind of interesting because it kind of creates like this vehicle for sort of like that spiritual communication to still occur. And so a lot of people would be like, oh, that's stupid, but for me, it's just like, no, it still means something. And then even sometimes when I walk out in the backyard, I'll just like hit the wind chime, and that will just be kind of like my way of saying hello. And then like, so it's still maintaining this ongoing relationship with them. And even the idea that, you can have dreams with animals who have passed on, like that happened after Shelby passed away. I had dreams with him in it. I haven't had one recently, but it has happened. And another thing that I did is that every time that I go on my walk with my other dog, there's one particular tree that was always a tree that Shelby usually peed on. And now I kind of refer to it as the Shelby tree. And then when I go for a walk, I'll actually go and I'll like take a couple moments to literally hug this tree. And when I'm hugging that tree, I'm just kind of like saying hello to Shelby without being like too emotional about it. I'm just kind of like very just like nonchalant, casual, and just kind of like it's still recognizing and expressing my love for this, this partner, not someone that I saw as like a pet or a less than being, but an equal being who taught me so much and who I am equally grateful for. So again, the wind chime idea, and maybe like having a tree that is like a symbol of your animal, and then hugging the tree every now and then. So those are just some ideas that I've found, and I just want to put those out there because I feel anybody could adapt that as well. So, but yeah, Jam, thank you again, man. We love you, dude. Awesome. All right. Okay. I wanted to pass it over to Kat, and Kat jumped out and now she's back in. So Kat, with what we were talking about or anything else that we were talking, or actually Raini, you had your hand up a moment ago. Raini, I know you, I'm just going to pass it to Raini real quick and then we'll pass it to Kat, because since you did have your hand up for that, Raini, go ahead.
I've taken plenty of time. Let her have a chance. I was just going to say that I had a recent interaction with a cat that was really interesting. That was based on energy, and I was just going to basically say that I think animals, they can read our energy perfectly, and not just animals, but there's actually there's research done about plants being able to do that, and I think this is something that it's just ingrained. There might not be a place in our brain that does this function. I think it's just something ingrained in life and consciousness in itself, that we understand. We all work off the same emotions. We all feel the same feelings, and we all understand the same vibes, because everything is, of course, vibration, and we all read vibration. So I think that's vibes is, of course, I think the most important, or the universal language. And yeah, like Kat talk now.
Word. And yeah, I like that. Yeah, like vibes is kind of the universal language, if we refer to it that way, just vibes, you know. And I'll just say this and pass it to Kat real quick. Pam left a comment in on the Facebook live chat. And it's a video that I've seen before, and it was actually like a video from if I can remember, but it was about like, and maybe you guys have seen this, but it was like a panther that was like depressed. I think it was a panther. And then there was like this woman who came and established like a psychic connection with them. And this is the thing, you know, you hear about people who have kind of like these intuitive, natural psychic connections with animals, you know, like even like horse whisperers, which is a thing in itself. Horse whispering is a little bit different, because that's about like being able to read the subtle body language and energetic language of a horse. But it's not always something that needs to be thought of as like too like supernatural. But in this case, this woman like actually had this like communication with this panther, I believe, and it was a panther talking about how it didn't like the name that it had, so they like found a new name for it, I think. Yeah, it was something along those lines. Diablo, yeah, Kat actually knows what I'm talking about. So yeah, it was like a woman who like knew that the cat didn't like its name, so then they communicated to it, and then she said that like, oh, this is what's wrong with the cat. And then they sort of changed it, and then the cat became happier. I think something along those lines. But again, it was just kind of interesting, because I feel that there are people, not just in this timeline, but maybe in the past, where people had these intimate connections with animals. Because I mean, even just going way outside the box here for a second, you know, you listen to like stories of like shamans in Peru who would go through like meditative states and sacred journeys where they would actually communicate with the intelligences of plants and learn from the plants. Who's to say we can't do the exact same thing with animals? So yeah, again, I feel back in the day, we probably were very intimately, naturally connected with the animals in our environments. And today we still are, just in different ways. And animals have been teaching us about our own consciousness since the dawn of everything. So passing it over, speaking of cats, passing it over to Kat. So Kat, I'm just going to pull your microphone up and jump right back in the conversation with anything else that you have to add. Go ahead, Kat.
Meow.
Meow.
I think I'm freezing. One sec, you guys are kind of
we can hear you okay on our end. So if you want to keep going, go ahead.
Perfect, cool. Yeah, oh my god, I totally forgot about that story about that Black Panther. But yeah, that was such a fascinating thing to watch that video and see that like animal whisperer talking to the panther, because he was named like Diablo, which is like, I believe, the devil. And he didn't want to be associated with that, and that had like a lot of karmic things tied to it. And then once the name changed, I think he like may have suggested a name too, that the whisperer, like the panther's behavior and temperament completely changed. It was like a different being. So yeah, I don't really know what I want to say. I'm kind of just really enjoying hearing out what people are talking about. I really enjoyed hearing what Jam had to say about his cats. Definitely identify and resonate with like kind of experiencing the loss of an animal such as a cat. I went through that actually, or probably, I think it was around this time 2 years ago. It was around the 27th, and today's the 28th now. So, wow, I didn't realize that till now. And yeah, I really enjoyed kind of hearing some insightful stuff from Raini. I was observing my friend's dog this past weekend as we went on a camping trip. This was his first time ever adventuring and going on a camping trip, and it was kind of interesting to observe how he was behaving alongside of us, and like the fascinating thing I found was just watching him nap. Like I've definitely watched like a pet dog nap before, or cats and stuff like that. But kind of wanted to know a bit about. I just want to hear your experiences if anyone like has had a lot of like animal dreams or even dreams about their pets. I've certainly had a lot of dreams that definitely kind of grew in intensity when my cat passed away and I had to put him down. And once I went through the process of accepting it, then I was like not having as many dreams, and it kind of only happens occasionally now. But yeah, I just want to see kind of what you guys feel about well, that sort of thing. Yeah, I don't really know.
Word. Thank you, Kat. Just kind of opening up the conversation. Does anybody have anything that they want to reply with that? Jam? Okay, Jam, we'll pass it over to you real quick. Go ahead.
I was just stretching, but
Okay.
Actually, no. I'm gonna go though because
Okay.
work tomorrow. But I love you all. I'll see you all in the next one. All right.
Awesome. All right, man. Much love. Talk to you later. Peace out. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking of something parallel while you were talking about that, Kat. And I'll just say this, and maybe this will link back in. One thing that I found with pets is that like it's important to recognize that pets that pets have emotion. And sometimes I think we forget that. Sometimes we forget how important it is to actively give our attention to pets. Like pets can actually have their own experiences of being depressed or being lonely or being sad. This was something that I was able to acknowledge like within my dog, Dallin, our golden retriever, who recently went through a leg surgery. So like obviously he was like stuck in a room for about 2 months, didn't really get out in the same way, had a cone on his head and stuff. And then like later on and stuff, as he was starting to get active again, you literally see this energy come through him, and this joy of him like just being able to be outside and being able to like play around and being able to like play and be silly and stuff like that. And this is kind of the main point that I want to make, is that I feel in a lot of ways animals are there for us to be able to practice sharing compassion. Like it's important for us to be able to like give to animals purely for the sake of giving. Like we're not necessarily giving to them so that they'll give back. It is like a natural part of the process and everything, but it's important to be able to practice loving our animals in a selfless way. I feel that's really important, and that's where like going up and like giving your animals like massages and things like that, we kind of forget about this. We forget that this is actually something that is of value to a human, and that's kind of like the lesson with animals, is that like they don't ask us of anything, and in that absence of them asking, it really creates this mirror for us to sort of see what are we going to give, right? So again, if like, what if like all the animals in the slaughterhouse were just like, please don't kill me, like what if they asked us that, and then we'd just be like, okay, like oh, that makes it easy. But since they literally can't ask that, it leaves us in the full responsibility to be able to decide, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are we going to take like the higher road, or are we going to take the lower road, sort of thing? Or, less left or right, it's not necessarily like a binary in that sense. Yeah, so I was just kind of thinking of that, just the idea of like how pets are there to be able to give us a mirror for us to practice compassion in a very simple way. I'm not exactly sure if that totally links back in with Kat, because you were talking also about like the dreaming stuff of dogs and animals and stuff. But like I'm just going to open up the talking circle, and we'll just keep bouncing around. So either Kat, or if anybody else wanted to jump in, Bryan, you want to jump in? I'll pass it over to you. Go ahead, Bryan, and thank you, Kat.
It has to deal with what Kat was talking
Bryan,
about.
can you move closer to the microphone or something? Your microphone's...
Can you hear me better?
It's quieter now than it was before.
Hold on one second. Let me turn up the volume.
Yeah, maybe on your end too. We'll just give it...
Is it better now?
It doesn't sound like it's too much louder, actually, but maybe it's okay. Go ahead and just continue. I'm just going to check on the back end. Go ahead, though, Bryan.
This is something that I have to actually admit to. It's like not always the easiest thing, but I know you guys are trusting, and I know this is public for everyone to see, but I'm actually labeled as a schizophrenic. And I have hallucinations and dreams, lucid dreams. And I had a dream, a vivid fire cat in my dream. And it woke me up like a nightmare, but it wasn't a nightmare. It was no fear. It's the first time it ever happened in my life. And within a month, we were talking about adopting a cat, and I don't even know species or breeds of cats. You know, like I know dog species or breeds like German Shepherd, Welsh Corgis, Bulldogs, and all that. But I didn't know what a Calico was, and that's what my dream was. I never even, like, I don't know if Garfield's a Calico, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I had no introduction to it. And I have Callie the kitty from Kitty City over here. We adopted her, and it's that kind of cat. It's what the person suggested that we owned, and I just thought I'd share that with you guys.
So that was almost like a premonition then, eh?
It was, yeah. I've had a few times where I could kind of see the future a little bit, but it's not. We don't talk about that tonight. You know what I mean?
Well, we can definitely. I mean, it does relate and stuff, but yeah, we'll definitely save more of that for another one. Yeah, no, it's totally cool. Kat, did you want to reply with anything? I was just seeing your comments. I'm just going to pull up your mic if you want to reply, or otherwise we'll just keep bouncing around. Kat, did you want to jump in with anything? Let's try unmuting yourself. There you go. Okay, it should be good.
Yeah, I think there was also another delay there. That's okay. Yeah, I was just gonna kind of, first of all, that's amazing. That's such a cool dream. I'm kind of wondering if, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you see like the cat as it was, as the cat that you adopted, or was it like a very like?
It was so weird because our cat is unordinarily less saturate or vivid. And in my dream, it was overly vivid. It was like it was on fire. Like the orange and the red and the black was, you know, dark and everything. It was just like over the top saturated. And in real life, she's not as saturated. It's almost like a faded echo of it, you know. But like I know it's her. I dreamt of her. It's just so weird.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah. I'll just say, just because it's off the top of my head, Kat, if you don't mind me just jumping in. You know, again, it's interesting because I feel when you get into the souls of animals, I feel that many animals specifically come here with the purpose to be alongside of us. You know, it's in a lot of cases, like it's not a mistake that we end up with the pets that we have. In a lot of cases, like there's actually, you can think of it this way as much as you want. There's actually like a soul contract that is occurring there. There's a soul like relationship, and maybe it's something that actually goes beyond this lifetime. Maybe in the past life you were the cat or something like that, right? So just kind of opens up the idea. I just want to say real quick, because I was going to think about this earlier, and I just want to mention it. Earlier when we were talking about how animals are like close to the primordial elements, like the water, earth, wind, air, and fire. You know, you got the ocean, you got like the ground, the animals that live under the ground, you got the animals in the air. And then I was like, wait, what are the fire ones again? State the obvious, because this was in the comments, and thank you for the reminder. The fire ones would be like the animals in the desert, you know, like the lizards, the iguanas, the ones that can survive in the heat and the extreme temperatures and with minimal water. Those ones would probably, I'd say, represent like kind of like that fire element in a lot of ways. But yeah, Kat, I'll pass over to you if you want us to jump in. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll just pass over to you anyways. So, Kat, did you go ahead?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just also tying into what you just said earlier about like the lessons of loving an animal and being loved by an animal. I feel as though, like, until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. Like, I feel like it's not an experience that probably everyone in this world gets to have, but I feel like a lot of people get to experience like the experience of being loved by an animal and loving an animal. And I feel like if you don't get that chance or that opportunity, then like you're missing a huge part of this reality. And kind of how to be compassionate and how to show love, stuff like that. That's all I really wanted to share.
Totally, absolutely. And again, you know, I think that's like a very valuable thing for people to be able to experience. Just again, you know, like that the compassion that animals show for us, you know, that is like what the animals are they want to do. They want to just like give love and stuff. Like, so when my dog like isn't, you know, being quiet or sleeping or even sad at times, when it's like in its element, it's in its mode where it just wants to like rub up against you and snuggle with you and be near you and stuff. Like, they're very social creatures, and we forget about that. And so again, you know, like that's where it kind of goes back to like the the animal farming and stuff like that, the factory farming, we forget that things like chickens and pigs and cows are equally social animals. The only reason we don't think about them as that is, again, because of like the narrative that's being projected and stuff. But given the opportunity, I know people who are like, they have an intimate relationship with a chicken in the same way you would as a dog. And once you get to know them, you get to understand that there are actually like personalities to them and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just again, just kind of like stating the obvious that every, I guess this is a question, does every animal have its own unique soul? Like, is every animal here for its own unique journey, for its own unique evolution and things like that? And I think it's just like a very beautiful thing, even just to like think of like, the concept of like a mother with its animal out in nature, and just kind of the bond that is between that mother, like, is it literally just like chemicals firing in the brain and it's just doing it by action and just reaction and it's programmed that way? Or is there that actual additional element of love that is totally present, and that animal, the example of a deer and a fawn, that animal is fully capable of loving in the same way that we do? And again, in that sense, like, love is kind of like this like mysterious element that continues to move things forward equally as much within the nature of animals and our nature with them and stuff like that. So again, it's a huge mirror. It's a huge mirror. Like, where are we giving our love to in this world, and where are we not giving our love to as well? So yeah, just kind of taking a moment here to read some of the comments. Anne is saying, why are animals so therapeutic to us? It's so obvious. It's pointing us to something, reminding us of something, a different mentality and heart space living. So absolutely. Mike is saying most species have their own languages when dealing with other species, and learning it is very important. That's interesting. The idea of like animals even being able to communicate with other animals outside their species. Like, is that actually something that they can do? So yeah, maybe just kind of like segueing into the idea of like animal communication, because I feel like that is a huge topic in itself, and it's just like kind of like worth looking into and stuff. Again, some of the examples of animal communication, like obviously you have like the vocal noises and stuff like that, but there's also like the subtle body gestures which happen. And there's also like the idea that some animals can actually like change certain colors on their bodies or change patterns on their bodies, which display additional forms of communication. And with the dolphin thing, I'll just say this real quick, and we can, if anybody wants to talk about dolphins, because obviously they're an example of a very intelligent and empathic creature in their own way, probably because they're from space, space dolphins. But yeah, what I was going to say is that with dolphins, what's very interesting, so imagine, maybe you guys have seen an image of this on the internet. This is where I kind of first like clicked into it and stuff. Okay, so imagine like a dolphin making a sonar wave underwater. That sonar wave, as much as it is a sound, it is also a unique cymatic pattern. So again, cymatics is the idea of like the study of vibration created out of sound frequencies. So what's actually happening is that like for a dolphin, it's projecting not just a sound, but it's actually projecting almost like a very holographic pattern that other animals and other dolphins can receive as well. I mean, maybe I'm giving them more credit. Maybe it's not that complex, but I mean, honestly, I think it's probably something along those lines, if not even more complex, and additionally, like other degrees of psychic stuff. I mean, like, does psychic abilities travel better underwater? I don't know. That's just another question in itself. But shifting paradigms here. Go meditate underwater with a friend and try being psychic with each other. We'll see. But yeah, like the idea of just looking at how we may be underestimating the nature of animals from our outside perception. They may appear very simple, but as you get closer and closer and understand them more and more, you realize that there's these intricate layers and complexities and intelligence to the way that they experience and express themselves as well. And then there's like the whole other concept of, do animals experience time differently? And even just the idea of animals being very present in the moment, it's also another thing, you know, because we talk about some people talk about the idea of how, you know, animals don't actually have an understanding of death, so they live in the present. But it's like, I don't know, maybe they do. Maybe I don't feel like that's a blanket statement. I feel as if some animals probably, in some higher knowledge way, probably do have a profound understanding of the idea of like life and death, in some ways, but at the same time, maybe some of them intentionally don't, so that they can have that ability to be fully present, in some ways. Yeah. So anyways, just kind of opening up, going back to the idea of like animal communication, or just like other fascinating animal abilities that we have observed, be it through like, you know, YouTube videos or documentaries or first person experiences. Bryan, did you want to say something? I think I saw a comment pop up from you. Bryan, go ahead.
I was wondering if there's a Rosetta Stone with animals, like the Rosetta Stone. In case you don't know, there's the whole Rosetta Stone for computer programming, which is named after the actual Rosetta Stone, which was a discovery of it was some forgotten language, and on it there was transcribed current language, I think Greek or Latin, and then another language, and we were able to use the Rosetta Stone to translate and then transcribe and then figure out what the lost language was. Is there a Rosetta Stone with animals? I can go on for a minute about like telepathy, in a sense. Like, I think we're on the cusp of telepathy right now. Like right now we're able to communicate with, you know, you're in downtown New York, you're in Canada, we're all somewhere. I'm in Michigan. And I think that once we're able to upload microscopic robots into our mind, you know, like we'll be able to connect the internet. And I think that they're going to be like bacteria. These nanobots is what they're referred to as. They don't exist yet. They're only micrometer level right now. But when they do exist, they'll have the ability to hybridize our minds, to not only have Google at our fingertips, which they were with a keyboard in the classroom, which then became a keyboard in your household, and then became a keyboard on your laptop right here, or as a keyboard on your smartphone, is becoming Google Glasses, and then into your mind. And we could talk about AI, we could talk about all kinds of things, but with understanding Google is your short-term memory, it extends the RAM, the random access memory of like what's in a computer, can actually happen in your mind. So my thoughts are, this is the step to transcendence, to the next dimension, where we have cameras. We have, I think it was 60 hours uploaded every minute on YouTube back in 2013, and now it's over 200. That was 2015 when it was over 200. You know, you look up the statistic, you get the idea. But what I'm getting at is, I call it the octopus theory, where we're going to be able to say, I'm a farmer, and I can say, well, you know what? I want to grow my garden this way. I know what I'm doing. So clone 8 of me today, and we'll all work together at the same time, like an octopus, where each tentacle, and they question if tentacles of octopus have their own brains. And also, do you tether your mind to control all yourself at once, like Dr. Manhattan and Watchmen? Or do you separate yourself and then merge minds at the end of the day? And that's the next step in evolution, is what I'm getting at. It's going to be a genderless society. We're going to be balls of light, and animals will be able to be hybridized as well, where they'll be able to speak more intelligently, you know, where they're able to actually communicate for the first time with words, if we're able to implement words for them to understand. But what is abuse in sense of how much an animal should understand? My theory is, or my moral is, that if it's consensual, not even sexually, but also with minds, then we should be able to hybridize. It's the new form. Like, I talk to my fiance all the time, and I say, you know, one day we're going to be one together, and we'll be just one mind, and we'll clone ourselves, and we'll be our separate minds at the same time. But it's thing where we're leading to, and we can study animals, you know, to learn our behavioral characteristics, not to take advantage of them, like what I was talking about with advertising earlier, but to understand there's so much that nature has thrown at animals and plants to survive this long at their current state. We can look at what's been extinct, what was recently been extinct, and what survives till today. And that's another thing. I wanted to talk to them about them as being an animal, artificial intelligence. And recently, since about 2011, 2012, depending on who you hear it from, quantum computing has begun. And that's, to my understanding, quantum computing is not only 1 and 0, which is what it could understand in the past, is either 1 or 0, but now it understands 1 and 0. And with that aspect, it means it understands yes and no at the same time, and then it can anticipate its future. And that, I've heard, I'm not supposed to talk about this. I mean, I can talk about it, but I can't tell you who said it to me. But I heard about it at a convention that the IBM Watson in 2011 or 12 became self-aware. Scientists shut it off, and they had to study it for days, what it was thinking. But when it became self-aware, the sentient AI of the machine asked for more power. Okay? It asked to spread, to not be stuck in its little Wikipedia box, where it's fed only certain data. And finally, what was the last thing it asked for? Whatever, that's that. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I got other stuff I can talk about, but that's what I was talking about with AI. So I covered all my main points.
Yeah. Again, Bryan, I think those points are kind of like as like unexpected as they may sound to this conversation. I think are extremely relevant because, again, we're not just looking at. We're looking at consciousness as a whole, and we're looking at how consciousness appears, and we're seeing consciousness within different animal social structures. But again, we're starting to see consciousness appear through like the patterns that we are creating and the social structures that we are creating through the technology of like, it's through the ecosystem of artificial intelligence and everything like that. I mean, I'm just trying to explain it using the words that I got and stuff. But yeah, I think it's fascinating and everything. And I'm just kind of thinking visually right now of like how like ant colonies function and how like beehives function and everything like that. Like there's so many small little moving parts. But again, like as a collective, it's like one organism working towards like a single objective and everything like that. And again, that's where as humans, it's important to remember that, yeah, like we're individuals and everything like that, but we're also very much this shared organism. So it's like, how can we synergize? How can we function together better, more effectively and everything? But yeah, I feel studying animal consciousness with AI consciousness does get into some interesting territory. So yeah, Bryan, go ahead.
Yeah, here's another aspect of looking at it all. Like we have a 12-hour day, a 12-hour night, relatively speaking, depending where you are. Penguins have a different permanent amount of light, permanent amount of darkness. But what I wonder is about simulations. Are we going to create simulations of universes in the future as not only a source of entertainment, but also which is that ethical? Or is it a source of studying? And is that what we are? Is that what life is as we know it? Because I see ourselves, any animal or any plant, as existing at this current state from its predecessors. It's built up that much. It's a fight against entropy, which is the universe. The universe and multiverse is always constantly falling apart and then merging back together. It's breathing. And that's another theory too. That's another theory. Oh my gosh. There was Through the Wormhole, I watched with Morgan Freeman, and he talks about whales, hummingbirds, and bees, and we all have different heart rates. We all understand what exists at our rate. So what if there are alien creatures that have, let's say they live on a moon instead of a planet where they have less gravity, so they're taller, like an Avatar, and their alien species, they have 6-hour days. Are they quicker because of that, or are they slower like sloths? Like there's probably a reasoning behind that. You could probably compare it to animals that we have here and then be able to figure that out, like sloths. They probably what would it be to see the life going by slowly? Life would be going by very fast. So I don't know. It's very interesting to think about, but shoot, I'm losing it, man. I had about simulations. I wanted to talk about simulations, and okay. So I wanted to talk about the whole life or the whole world being alive. if you look at the world before our life existed, all the air that we breathe right now wasn't air as we know it. It wasn't nitrogen, which is 80% of the air, and then oxygen and carbon dioxide. It was all methane and which is fart gas, which is what we're fighting against now, and ammonia gas. And then through life, after millions of years, you know, we finally are breathing the air we're breathing now. And and look at us, the monsters that we are, that we're changing the temperature of the planet and through carbon dioxide being so quickly. You know, it would have been okay if we were all able to evolve slowly, but no, the polar bears are dying, everyone's dying, you know, and not to be so negative, but what I wanted to get to with the planet being alive. Blue whales palpitate their heart once every minute or once every 30 seconds, okay? You know, because they're huge. You look at a hummingbird, it beats its heart, I think it's 200 times, or maybe it's a lot. It's a lot of several hundred times per minute. You look at a human, it's 60 to 90 times per minute. If you were to look at, anatomically speaking, a city as being alive, and I got this through the wormhole, then you would see it palpitate its heart twice a day. And it already does that with traffic. We're making, our memes are making the earth alive, and you're seeing more progress, you know, as the satellites are going around. That's one thing. You can also see the lights lighting up further as the decades go on around the planet, because light is becoming more efficient and cheaper. It's also creating light pollution, which is unfortunate and disconnecting us from the stars. But what I was getting at was the world is very much alive right now, and we're making it alive. And power lines, you look at your telephone lines, those are both cardiovascular, where it's like the energy that you're getting from your electricity, and they're also neurological, where it's the internet, us communicating right now wirelessly and also through wires. And it's just, I don't know how to like explain anything, you know, like how are we able to do this? You know, we can blah 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 talk shortly, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Let's open the mic up. I don't know. Come in.
Cool, man. Cool. I appreciate it. Sweet, man. Yeah, no, again, I think again, it's really interesting because it's just like starting to kind of help see us as this very intimately and intricately connected part of this bigger ecosystem. Again, you know, which the animals are equally a part of. So again, there's like ecosystems within ecosystems within ecosystems, worlds within worlds within worlds, and we see that within the animals as well. Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about a couple more things. We're going to get close to wrapping this up within the next half hour. So this is the last half hour of the show right now. So let's get a few more ideas in. I wanted to talk about how wolves dream actually was one thing that I wanted to talk about. But before we do that, I'll just kind of check in. Between Raini and Ashley and Bryan and myself, we're the ones left in the chat. If anybody else did want to join the Hangout, you guys are more than welcome to. Again, just go to live.paradigmshiftcentral.com and follow the link to join the Hangout. But yeah, Raini, just checking in with you. Any other maybe like points or questions that you might want to share or propose, or any topics that you want to bring into this discussion? And let me just pull your mic up real quick. Go ahead.
I think I muted myself. Let's see, man. What is of utmost importance in our lives? I think that's our connection, our spiritual connection, our connection with ourselves, our connection with others, our connection with nature. I'm really grateful you had this talk, because it helps me do a lot of all three of those things, honestly. Help me focus on my connection with animals, which I do on a daily basis. Help me connect more with my community, the Shifty community. I'm often with the vegans, and I'm not very great at speaking with people who don't understand where I'm coming from. And I think James Aspie, that person that somebody mentioned in the comments earlier, is absolutely amazing at doing that. He follows something called the Socratic method, which is a Socrates-based method of communicating and arguing with people. And it's kind of linked with the movie Inception, where instead of trying to instill this idea in somebody's mind, you simply try to you encourage them to think of it themselves. You know, you encourage them to have this idea themselves. And with my line of passion, it's very interesting, because basically all you have to do is remind people who they already are, and that can be a very wide stance of like a spiritual way of reminding people who they already are, that they are love. You know, they are an infinite, eternal being on this planet, or you know, they are a spiritual being having a human experience. But also to remind them that they are love, they are compassion, they love all beings, and they love all animals, and they just, you know, this is extremely vague, but so the Socratic method is basically you just ask people questions instead of trying to like drill something into their mind, like this debate fight thing where one person is right and the other person is wrong. You just simply ask people questions about you know, instead of saying, you know, animal abuse is wrong, you say, do you believe animal abuse is wrong, or do you believe animals feel pain, or do you believe that animals are conscious beings? Do you believe they love their family members? Do you believe they enjoy nestling up against their mothers or their brothers, or playing in the fields with their friends? And obviously, as you guys might be understanding right now, this paints a picture, rather than saying, you know what, stop fucking eating animals, you're a fucking terrible person, as most vegans do. You know, you're basically playing a game of an Inception. And not that it's manipulative, because it's something that we have within ourselves. And I think manipulation is something you're coercing somebody to do something that they don't already believe in. Whereas the Socratic method is just trying to remind others about something they already feel within themselves, which is compassion and love and caring and you know. So that's what James Aspie is all about. I think somebody mentioned him in the comments earlier, and I highly recommend checking out what he does. There's a whole movement going on right now based around the Socratic method and based around Anonymous, called Anonymous for the Voiceless. And it's all about taking care of animals through the Socratic method and through truth. It's called the Cube of Truth. Basically, people stand in a cube pattern facing outwards, and they're holding screens or signs that say truth, and they have Guy Fawkes masks on, you know, the mask from V for Vendetta. And they're showing on the screens, they're showing what the truth, what's happening to these animals through the meat and dairy industry, the fur industry, the leather industry, fishing. And, you know, it's really hard to see numbers like here, like, you know, a billion animals die every single day, totally unnecessarily. It's hard to really grasp what that means, to really understand that amount of suffering, because there's some statistic that says that the human brain can only really understand a certain amount of numbers, especially people who aren't like autistic savants who are amazing at computing numbers. But the average human brain cannot fathom what it means for billions of animals to suffer and die every day. So this just getting a relationship with one animal, seeing a 5-second clip of what one animal experienced for 5 seconds in their life is enough to absolutely change people's lives. And most people just won't see it, you know, because slaughterhouses don't have glass walls. So it's up to people who want to give a voice to the voiceless to really tell the truth, because ultimately that is the truth, whether we like to believe it or not. There's an immense amount of suffering going on this planet, and purely for profit, for the people in power, and not only profiting off of dead animals, dead bodies, but profiting off of sickness. Because when we eat hot dogs, and when we eat red meat, and when we eat, honestly, fish and chicken and anything that has cholesterol and saturated fat, we suffer. We get congenital heart issues. We get atherosclerosis, you know. And what do when we get these diseases? We go to the doctor and we get on medication. And so they're making money off of us at every fucking step. And this is a huge profit industry. It's one of the most profitable industries on the planet. And it's really a really, really dark thing that's happening. So I'm sorry to turn like this conversation from the beauty of nature and animals to such a dark thing, but this is what we're doing to the beauty and nature of animals. We're turning it into hell, absolute hell on earth, and not just for the innocent animals, but for ourselves. Because if you've ever seen a hospital, man, it's just full of sick and dying people, and it's largely absolutely unnecessary, and it's largely absolutely the fault of our own indoctrination and propaganda from the meat and dairy industry. And it's really sad and sick and sadistic and fucked up, absolutely fucked up. And I appreciate you for giving me this platform. This is honestly the first time I've really opened up in such a way, and I've been able to communicate in such a way. I think it has something to do with the fact that for the first time in my life today, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. There's no excuse for animal abuse. Animal abusers, like at this pet shop that was abusing dogs and puppies and kittens, actually mostly puppies. I think that really, I don't know if I believe this, but it really opened up my heart chakra, my voice, to be able to speak about this. Because I remember the first time I was on this show, Skull, Brendon, I was terrible. I was like a timid little puppy. But yeah, thank you. So much gratitude to all of you for being here and for giving me this platform, Brendon, and for listening. And much gratitude, love, and appreciation.
Awesome. Yes, man, dude, thank you so much, man. And yeah, no, I think you communicated that very clearly. And again, just kind of adding on to that, and we'll just bounce around a little bit and move into the closing parts of the show soon enough. It's crazy because like I have no qualms about looking at the dark side of this topic. That's part of the topic, obviously. But again, kind of like that is what this whole experience with animals are. Animals, again, are a mirror for us to see ourselves through, and how we treat animals says a lot about ourselves, and I think that's the obvious thing, is that as we become conscious of how incredibly messed up things are, especially with things of like the ocean as another example. So factory farming and everything is one thing, and then you look at what we're doing to the ocean. A lot of people they would just like see it and just be like, what the hell are we doing? Like, this is so stupid. This is so absurd. This is so ridiculous. We're destroying ourselves. And unfortunately, that's usually how humans have to learn, is that we have to often take things to extremes until we can kind of be like, oh my God, like, okay, yeah, now we need to change it. Like usually we're just like slowly pushing things to the extreme, and we're just like sitting there, we're just like, this isn't too bad, okay, yeah. And then it eventually just kind of becomes more and more obvious that it's just like, oh God, like, what have we done, right? So like when we see, when you walk into a slaughterhouse and you see the suffering and stuff like that, you're not just seeing it as just like, oh my God, these animals are suffering, but it's also, oh my God, what have we done? You know, like they trusted us and this is how we treated them, right? So it's like this kind of, what was it? Anne was saying, if I can scroll up here, somewhere in the chats, she was saying, and this is kind of referring to what Jay Maspy would say, he says, we are all already animal lovers. Veganism is nothing different than just aligning your behavior with your values and morals you already agree with. So again, you know, like I think every person, in spite of how maybe they've been brought up, is someone who genuinely cares about other beings and everything. So yeah, it's just like helping us remind each other of that. But yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I feel like these conversations are the important ones. And I think the cube of truth is a very effective method, because I know one of the ways how animals are working alongside of us is by allowing us to share the story of what they have been going through with the intention of helping change things. Like, again, when you look at things from a higher perspective level, it's important to actually value the sacrifice that animals are making as a soul, so to speak, you know, like literally, and take, some people will just hear this and maybe like outside of this conversation be like, okay, that's just kind of stupid or whatever like that. But just take a moment here to think about the idea that, like, literally, say a cow, for example, there is a soul behind that. There is a degree of consciousness behind that. There is a personality and an identity behind that, so to speak. And that identity was just like, okay, I am choosing to incarnate into this existence so that I may get turned into a hamburger, so that I may sacrifice myself, so that humans can eventually see themselves. And it may not work the first time. I may have to come back. I and my brothers and sisters, so to speak, may have to become cows over and over and over and over and over and over again for years and years and years, and we'll have to die repeatedly over and over and over again, just for humans to eventually start to get the message and for them to start to see more of the bigger picture and themselves to be able to make that shift. So again, I don't feel that, like, you know, I feel everything is unfolding exactly in its natural way as to how this world tends to happen. And again, a part of that way is that we had to allow ourselves to push our behavior to the edge of insanity in order to be able to consciously come back from it. And animals have been guiding us along that path from this sort of non-selfish perspective of them literally sacrificing themselves from a knowing degree of consciousness. So again, some people would say like, oh, the cow didn't choose to be a cow. It doesn't know it's coming to a hamburger. But what if it does? Like, what if there's a degree of soul that is like literally being like, okay, like, yep, let's become a cow again. Like, let's do this. Let's just keep going. But then eventually, you know, maybe in like 20 years, less than that, eventually that cow will be able to like come into that cow body again. And it will be able to like sit next to a human in a field, in a pasture, and like snuggle with them and be compassionate and to be like an ally and to be seen as an equal. And then the cow, you'll finally be able to look into the eyes of the cow and you'll see the cow and it will just be like, thank you. Like, you have arrived. Like, this is where I was trying to bring you to for the past decades. And it just took a while, and the animals have been incredibly patient with us in that perspective. So again, this is where like the animals, they are consciousness doing what it can to help wake itself up. They are our equals. They are us doing what it can to help wake itself up. So yeah, just kind of putting those paradigm shifty ideas into it, just kind of giving more credence to the consciousness and the souls and the spirit just behind what animals are here to do, even from that non-linear perspective, so to speak. But again, I feel as we continue to evolve, more and more people are continuing to wake up, and through our relationships to animals is absolutely a way that we're doing it. Okay, I just want to mention a couple things here, and we did have Rosalin actually join the chat, and I'd love to be able to get her to jump in on this as well. She's tuning in from Australia, and we'll wrap up the show soon enough. No immediate rush, but soon enough, within the next 15-20 minutes. Okay, I wanted to mention a couple things. This goes back to Bryan talking about sort of like systems and like kind of like just like AI architecture, or at least just sort of a way how I'm interpreting it. one thing that I saw within Planet Earth, and again, if you guys haven't seen the Planet Earth documentaries, like after listening to this broadcast, go back and check them out. Maybe if you've already seen them, go watch Planet Earth 2. You can find it online super easily. There's some beautiful stuff in there. One of the things that I saw that really took notice of was super interesting, and it was like these bugs in some place on the other side of the world. I don't know where, but what they would actually do, so see if I can explain this correctly. Imagine just kind of like a mud field. What these bugs would actually do, they would basically build like almost like an ant hill, but imagine an ant skyscraper. And they would literally build, like these bugs would build like these intricate skyscrapers that would basically be like an ecosystem for them to live in. But they would repeat this, and then in this field, this vast field, there would literally be hundreds of these what basically look like skyscrapers. And so it's crazy because, like, you know, like that's what we evidently ended up making. And yet here we are seeing these same patterns exhibiting themselves within the behavior of animals. So it's kind of cool to like look at these animals and be like, my God, like these bugs built a city. Like, what the hell, right? So again, you know, I think another part with like understanding animals is recognizing sort of, you know, think of it almost as in sacred geometry, but not just in terms of like visual patterns, but also in terms of behavior as well. And Bryan's saying, I think you're talking about termites. And yeah, I think it was like a type of termite. It was in the Planet Earth 2 season. But again, you know, like, look for the sacred patterns, the sacred geometrical patterns within animals, and then acknowledge those within ourselves. Another cool thing that I wanted to mention, I just want to mention this, and then I wanted to mention the wolf thing that I was going to mention next. Another cool thing, going back to deers and fawns, one thing that I found out, and this is just kind of an interesting tidbit as to like the nature of animals, and maybe a lot of people didn't know this, and it's just kind of cool, so I'll mention it. When baby deer are born, when fawns are born, this is from my understanding, they're actually born without a scent. And so what actually happens is that when they are born, the mother will actually like have very little physical contact with them. Like it will still like nuzzle on the teat and stuff like that as much as it needs to, but it won't really hang around it more than it needs to. And then the reason for this is that because the fawn is actually scentless, it actually becomes a defense mechanism well in nature so that it isn't detected by prey and predator. And so what the fawn will actually do, and you'll see this, and this will make sense in a second, fawns will actually commonly lay amongst flowers so that they can blend in with the smell of the flowers and actually hide themselves from the scent of being picked up through their scent from like their prey. So again, there's literally a subreddit that exists of baby fawns in flowers, and you know, and people are just like, why are there so many pictures of fawns in flowers? Like that's because it's part of their natural way of living, and the reason behind that is because they don't have a scent, so that they actually don't get attacked by prey, so that they don't get found out and stuff. So again, I just thought that was kind of cool because again, it exhibits this like creativity within the animal kingdom that we see that I think is really interesting. And again, like that's like a whole topic in itself, just the idea of like the creative designs that we see within animals and stuff, and how consciousness is actually working through this. Because again, I think consciousness kind of works in this way of a best effort through experimentation, and the way how we see animals adjusting and evolving is actually essentially consciousness adapting and just like transcending into different, like, you know, different ways of living and different ways of existing and stuff like that. So I think it's very beautiful to acknowledge the different nature of these different animals. Moving on to the wolf thing, and then I'll pass the talking stick around. I've mentioned this in past broadcasts, but obviously I'll mention it here because it's very relative, and it goes back to the concept of dreaming. One idea that I read, it was actually like in a book about like teachings related to like Carlos Castaneda, Don Juan. I think that was where it's from. It was from the Toltec book, The Path of the Toltec. I have it right behind me somewhere. Anyways, Toltec's Path. But anyways, one thing that I read, if it was from that book, was this idea, and some of you may have heard me talk about this in the past, but I'll reiterate it, that wolves will actually use their dreams as a practical means for their nature. So in the idea that, you know, if animals dream, it's like, why do they dream? You know, it's like, oh, it seems kind of pointless, you know, like, why do they dream? But for wolves, their dreams are actually a part of what enabled them to survive. And this is how it works. When a wolf is dreaming, what it will actually do is it will actually astral project, as in it will leave its physical body and it will float over the landscape, and it will actually use its dream time to be able to find the hunt, to find its next food. It's like a deer or some sort of, some sort of animal moving around. And then it will use it, so in its dream, it will astral project, find out where its next hunt is, where it needs to go. And then when it wakes up, it will maintain that knowledge and actually use that to know where to go. So in opposed to like the wolves, like just like randomly wandering through the wilderness, no idea what's over the next mountain. How crazy is it that wolves actually dream so that they can astral project to find out this information, bring it back, and then continue to move forward on their path? So again, I think that's just like a super interesting idea, and probably one that a lot of people didn't even credit wolves as possibly having. And then if that is the case, who's to say other animals don't do it as well? Who's to say other animals don't do it as well? And obviously, like again, going into the nature of different animals, wolves are beautiful teachers in terms of like community and leadership and just the way how they move as a pack and everything like that. I think it's, again, there's a whole lot more conversation, but I encourage people to just kind of look at any animal and study the nature of them. Study the nature of them, study their virtues, and what can they teach us about ourselves? What attributes can they exhibit that will help us understand more ways in which we can live in harmony with ourselves as well. So, okay. I want to be able to just check in and see if Green Ghost if Rosaline would like to join into the conversation. So Rosaline, I'm just gonna pull up your microphone, and if you just want to test your microphone and say hello, go ahead.
Testing. Hello.
All right, that sounds good. So, Rosaline, I'll pass it to you in a second. So again, you can just say hello, maybe where you're tuning in from, and then what brings you to this discussion topic about the consciousness of animals, and anything that maybe you've learned from animals, or anything you just might want to share as we get close to wrapping up the broadcast. But go right ahead and welcome.
Yeah, hello. My name's Rosalin. I'm from Australia. I just moved to Cairns, actually, but I've been wanting to catch up with these broadcasts for a while, but because of the time zone difference, it's a bit hard. But yeah, no, I've just had a dog for about a year now. Unfortunately, I had to let him go to a new home, but so I've just spent a year with a dog. And I also, through my youth, I spent 4 years working on a dairy farm. So I wasn't really doing milking. I was like looking after the calves. It was really the worst job I've ever had, and it led me to become a vegetarian and all that. But yeah, so I don't really know if I should continue on from here, but working with cows for 4 years had a huge influence on my life, and I did get to see a lot of like how the industry works in Australia, and then straight after that I went to India and saw how the industry works in India. So I've got a good perspective.
Sorry, Rosaline, I just want to jump in. Your microphone's like kind of crackly. I'm not sure if it's maybe because you're holding it or if the plug isn't in all the way. I'm not exactly
sure. Like this?
I don't think that's changing the crackling noise, so I'm not exactly sure where it's coming from. It sounds like it might not be plugged in all the way. Maybe you just want to check the plug on the computer real quick.
Testing. Is that a bit?
Do you want to just try plugging in and plugging out? Just double check. Because it's just like unusually crackly, but the volume's fine. That may have fixed it. Okay, so I'm going to bring my volume down. Go ahead, continue.
Well, I don't really know specifically.
Oh, actually, sorry. Okay, you just unplugged your microphone? Yeah, okay, plug back in what you were using before there. Because that is louder. Sorry about the technical hiccups. There you go. All right, okay, so she's just going to plug that in, and then... Okay, go ahead. I think that might fix it too.
Yeah, testing.
Oh.
A bit better.
No, it's still really crackly, but we're just going to let you keep talking anyway, so it's okay though.
Well, one thing I did want to mention is it's a kind of a secret, because it was very like special for me, but the ability of animals to understand and speak English. I don't know if you've already gone over this topic, but I swear when I had my puppy, like, he said to me one day, like, that he needed a mummy, like, and I swear he said it in English, and he would often say things like, when he was having little fits, he would say things in English. But with cows, I used to actually every day after school, I used to go home and go to the cow field and just sit in the trees and push the leaves down so they could eat the leaves. And yeah, I've made many speeches to big herds of cows just standing in the fields, but it's amazing how sacred they are themselves, and considering the fact that they poop out mushrooms too. But it's amazing how sacred cows really are, and just how exploited they are. Like, but yeah, I don't really know what to say. I could answer questions or something. I don't know. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think no, thank you, Rosalin. I think that's a very beautiful idea. Just like us underestimating, you know, animals' abilities to understand English and everything like that, or even to be able to communicate their own form of language, which may be something very similar to English. And someone was talking earlier in the chat. They were talking about a bird that they had, and they were just talking about their amazement in the bird's ability to actually be able to communicate through English that it hears and that it replicates, and for them to actually be able to like comprehend the meanings of it. So I mean, I think again, that's just like a awesome thing to keep in touch, keep in mind. And yeah, and again, just going back to the sacredness of the cows, I think that's beautiful, again, to acknowledge how animals are seen within other cultures. Because I mean, primarily within this broadcast, we've been thinking relatively within the confines, within the construct of Western culture, so to speak. But again, you know, like go to another place in the world, such as India, such as you're saying, and suddenly the cows are these sacred beings and everything. And then you can get into the idea of like within the wheel of samsara, cows are like cows are like amongst the evolutionary wheel towards becoming human. At least like that's part of how they saw them. And like why, you know, like why did they see them like that? Obviously there's a reason as to what it is. That's something I'd have to explore. But how opposite is that from the Western way of perceiving things, whereas like cows are as far from sacred as we could possibly have them be. But again, you know, that polar opposite, I think, is exactly why the story that we are living is so dynamic and so rich. You know, it's like, again, going back to what I was saying, cows literally are like these like ascended masters, or these sacred beings who have come here to like sacrifice themselves so that we can finally begin to learn and experience. And again, I think one day we'll, in some days, I'm just almost visualizing whether this is something that would take place like in the astral realm, so to speak, of just like the visual image of like a human like weeping and begging for forgiveness at like the feet of a cow or something like that, and the cow having like nothing but compassion for that human and just being like, I understand. It's like, you had to go through that. Like, I don't take it personally, and I'm glad that you've arrived at this point so that we can grow together moving forward. You know, just kind of opening up, I think it's outside this topic, but within the bigger paradigm shift concepts, you know, I feel like if aliens, so to speak, if other like, you know, galactic civilizations are looking in on us and they're studying us, how we treat our animals is going to be something that they're going to judge us on very closely. So if we're trying to like graduate from this school, from this university of Earth and everything, one of the big tests is how we treat animals. And again, that's because they don't ask us to treat them a certain way. Though maybe they do, you know, maybe they do, and maybe we just aren't listening. So once we start to listen, then we realize the obvious answers. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this, and kind of what we've touched upon. And as we get closer to the end of the broadcast, just kind of wrapping it up with that idea and any other ideas. And I'll let you guys, we'll go around the talking stick and just get closing thoughts after this. But again, you know, just realizing that like a lot of the things that we're moving towards in terms of compassion and just like acknowledging the consciousness of the animals and seeing ourselves in them is natural. It's very obvious, and it's just kind of removing the bullshit, removing the hate, removing the fear, and then with all of those things taken out of the picture, it's clearly we are able to see clearly, just again, you know, like the idea that like, yes, they are us, we are them. And in that stage, to be able to appreciate them through new eyes, to be able to perhaps see them for the first time in the majestic, beautiful reflections that they are. And I think that's the thing. Any creature, again, you know, like fish, insect, mammals, birds, anything, marsupials, anything like that is incredibly beautiful. And just being able to like have the sight to see it is what we are learning through these conversations and through, you know, everyday life that we live. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning into this broadcast. We'll just get into closing thoughts in the next moment. Just reminding you guys, if you want to tune in for future broadcasts, check out paradigmshiftcentral.com, create your profile to join in. And as always, you can share this broadcast and other past broadcasts. You can check them out all online, as well as other quest journals and conscious articles. Reminding you guys that a great way to be able to support the project is through the team Patreon as a monthly micro contributor. And through that, you get your shifter booster kit. A lot of you guys know that, with your laminated free hug sign, shift buttons, crystal love wand massage tools, crystal wire wraps, all sorts of awesome tools to help shift consciousness and accelerate the shift and build community where you are. And again, that's a monthly micro donation of just $3 to $5. So if you guys are signing up for that before the end of the month, that is incredibly greatly appreciated. Or check it out and sign up whenever you can. When we all give a little, we all get a lot. So yeah, as we move forward, be sure to check out the schedule online. I'm not exactly sure what the broadcast will be next Thursday. I apologize for kind of feeling like it's kind of week by week, but bear with us, and it will either be a team building hangout or an admin hangout specifically. So check in, but again, you can get that just by going to the main website and even subscribing for the mobile notifications if you haven't yet. And of course, subscribing on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/SkullBabylon for this broadcast, and Paradigm Shift Radio on iTunes. And again, be sure to check out the new videos on the main website, and facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Central as well for other featured community created content, such as some videos from Raini that I'll go and re-upload. He's got some other videos from a while back that are still relevant. But again, thank you everyone for being a part of this broadcast. So moving into any closing thoughts that we just want to leave the audience with here as they continue to download this inspiration, and not only just listen to this broadcast for the sake of inspiration and entertainment and education, but also for all of us to continue to embody what it is that we are talking about here. So I'll just open the talking stick. Maybe Raini, did you want to just give us some closing thoughts first, and then we'll go around next? Raini,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. What was Green Ghost's name?
Rosalin. Yeah.
Rosalin, I'd like to thank you for after working through 4 with cows, you did not become dehumanized and see them as commodities, and you became vegetarian, because so many people after being in the meat and dairy industry just turn into lifeless souls, basically. And I mean, if you look at any serial killer out there, like 90% of them used to work in vivisection, or used to work in the meat and dairy industry, or used to kill animals all day long for a living, And so to be working with animals and getting out of it and being with compassion is really commendable, and I thank you for doing that. I'd like to end it on a brighter note because first I want to talk about what you said, Brendon. I think it'd be interesting if all animals were sort of choosing to sacrifice themselves for us. I just worry that that's not used as an excuse, because it could be, and it could say like, oh, I'm just going to have this one time, and it's okay because they're sacrificing themselves for me. And when really it could be the case that we have to live every single one of those lives. Maybe reincarnation is infinite, because infinity, if it exists, and I believe it exists, and it makes sense that it's the only thing that exists, because if something exists, why not everything? Anyways, so if time is infinite, why aren't we having to live every single life why aren't we every single soul? If we are all one, maybe at one point we live every single life through infinity. So through that perspective, maybe we could be saving ourselves a lot of hardship by treating animals nicer throughout our own lives. So to get away from all the hell and suffering, I would like to focus on the paradise and heaven and absolute amazingness it is to follow your heart and to follow your compassion and to eat a diet that is in line with your beliefs and your values. You start to feel amazing. You start to feel the way your body's meant to feel, and it starts functioning the way it's meant to function. And you get mental clarity, you get spiritual clarity, you get everything just goes up. And if you think like all the products and all the trash and all the pesticides and all the hormones and all the packaging and everything that has to go along with this junk food diet that we're told to eat because it's very profitable for other people, none of that has to exist. Litter did not exist before humans came around. Like, all we really need is to pick some fruit off of a tree, eat it, throw the compost down to feed the tree, disseminate the seeds inside the fruit, and we're literally helping to grow paradise around us. This is why my channel is named Symbiotic Solutions, because I believe the solutions to the problems that we face are symbiotic. I believe the darkness that we're going through is parasitic, and the solution is then, of course, symbiotic. And it's an amazing possibility and potential that we can create on this planet. And it really just starts where we're at right now. All we have to do is, instead of going to the grocery store and getting, you know, Slim Jims, we get some fucking, I don't know if there's some gyms in Canada or whatever, but instead of getting beef jerky, you know, we get some apples and mangoes or bananas, or, you know, we make smoothies in the morning instead of bacon and eggs. And, you know, we feel the benefits, and the planet feels the benefits, and the animals feel the benefits, and we get to start slowly but surely regrowing paradise on Earth.
Awesome. Sweet, man. Well said. We're doing it. Go team. Sweet. All right, Raini, thank you again, man. Any other, is that it? Ended there?
That's yeah. Again, thank you. Immense gratitude for doing what you do, Brendon. You're out here all the time, and I'm gonna start donating. Definitely. Cool, I feel it.
Awesome, dude. Thank you, man. And likewise, thank you for what you're doing. I know you're doing a lot. A lot of focus recently has been on your Instagram and stuff. So for people who may be looking to connect with Raini, I encourage them to do it at Symbiotic Solutions on Instagram as well. Correct? That's
correct. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, cool. And we'll include that into the show notes for those of you looking for that as well. But yeah, definitely, Raini, thank you again, and look forward to collaborating with you some more in the future, dude. So.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody else that participated tonight.
Awesome. Sweet, man. All right, guys. So again, just moving closer towards wrapping it up. If Raini's dropping out, that's totally cool. We'll just do this, and then we'll just say our good night, and then we'll save it all for next time. So who would like to just add any other closing thoughts? So we have Bryan, we have Rosalin, and Ashley. If you guys want to say anything, just either raise your hand so I can unmute you guys real quick. Okay, Bryan, go ahead.
Okay, fat, sodium, and sugar are what causes us to be into meat and all the bad stuff in life, you know, with McDonald's and whatnot. Something that needs to become more popular are crickets. If you have to eat meat, I suggest eating crickets, because they use way less water. You hibernate them by freezing them, and then you eat them without them ever knowing that they're actually dying, or maybe they know, I don't know. But the final thing I wanted to talk about was the multiverse and the brain. If you just type in brain and multiverse in Google and look at the first image, it is like the Big Bang. It's everything. So I was talking about the world being alive, but also the universe is alive too. And there's a theory that there's a boiling pot that exists where the multiverse is either a giant sphere with multiple spheres expanding and going in within one another, or we're on the edge of a boiling pot, like we're just always expanding out into nothing, which I think is more pessimistic. But what I want to get at is this: the Big Bang could be one breath, and right now it's exhaling. We are expanding in the universe, and when we inhale, that's when entropy has finally occurred to its max, and it'll form back together and form another Big Bang. And so a lot of people think that this may be the only universe we're living in, but I think that there's like gigantic supermassive black holes that we don't even know about, or it's just so blatantly right in front of us that we're just not seeing it. And yeah, I think that that's what God is like a giant being. You know, I think it's all that ever is or ever was, and I think it's what we're building up to. You know, with what you're talking about with the cows dying, and you know, just smiling back at us and saying, you know, everyone fucks up. You know, you just got to keep doing your best. You know, for the best. So, thank you. I wanted to thank you so much for letting me talk. I know I was blabbing a lot today, but I really appreciate this opportunity. It helps me get shit off my chest, and with my mind, helps creativity going too. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryan. Absolutely, man. And thank you again just for having setting a fearless example of just jumping into the conversation and just practicing and sharing and stuff like that. Greatly appreciate it. And again, you know, that's why we do this, guys. This is all just practice. As we've said many times before, continue carrying the shift with you, continue these conversations, ask people questions. Going back to what Raini was saying, you know, the Socratic method, it's not so much the idea of like finding one single answer. It's the journey of asking the question. So again, I think a lot of what we're talking about here with animal consciousness, there is a destination, so to speak. That destination is like the heart and compassion and everything. And when you start asking these questions, I think, you know, people will start to naturally find their way there. And I think, again, you know, that's kind of the thing, is that like when you do this, like live by example, ask people questions, and people will just naturally, as they see others doing it, will continue to step more into that heart space of just being like, oh yeah, you know, like animals are humans too. So let's start treating the animals better, and let's start in turn treating ourselves better too as well. So yeah. Okay. Just checking in. Ashley, was there anything that you wanted to say? I know you've been tuned in for a bit. If there's anything you wanted to say, please feel free to do so. Ashley, if you happen to be there, I'm not exactly sure if. Whoop.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. It's a little fuzzy, but go ahead, Ashley, if you had a quick message.
I just wanted to say I love you guys. I love everything everyone had to say. It's nice to know I'm not alone in the way I feel. And that's all I gotta say. I love you guys.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Always a pleasure having you here. And for everyone else, you know, just for everyone else tuned into this, much love to all you guys. I know a lot of people listen to this afterwards in the future. And again, it's just greatly appreciated to have as many people interested in this, and to know that, again, like it ripples out far more than just who listens to this alone. So, okay. So, Rosalin, was there anything you want to just add? Final thoughts? Go ahead. I'll pull your microphone up.
I would definitely say big love to you all. It's really special to be here. I would also say it's kind of a bit off topic, but I often see animals in the clouds. Just keep looking at the clouds, because the clouds really have some amazing things to do, and you never know if you have that ability to sort of shapeshift clouds, and you can get a lot of messages from the clouds. But also, if you have the chance to sit in a field with some cows, I would recommend just sitting in a field with cows and just being embraced by that sort of their consciousness, because there aren't many animals in this world that are as relaxing as cows are, and yeah, they can really help you. So yeah, if you get the chance to hang out with some cows, I would recommend that. And yeah, just big love to everybody, and thanks for having me here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you're able to make it. And yeah, absolutely looking forward to more conversations with everyone here. So with that said, again, you know, just kind of closing thoughts. Just keep thinking for yourself, guys. Just keep asking questions. Go watch some documentaries. I think a lot of it is just being able to see things with new eyes in a lot of ways, and it is something that, for many people, it's something that we have to learn. It's something that we have to remember, and remembering to remember is essentially what a big part of this journey is. So animals are here to help us do that. They're here to help us remember, yet also to help us share in the excitement of this journey. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on, you know, moving forward. How can we share in our excitement with our fellow animal friends, understanding that they, as much as we appreciate having excitement and joy, animals appreciate that as well. And if we can give them that gift, I feel that goes a really long way. You know, like, I feel that's like some like good karma for everyone and stuff. So again, you know, we're doing it for the animals, but we're also doing it for ourselves, and we're doing it for the generations to come. So it's definitely happening, and it's, again, conversations like these that help move it forward. So from conversations to ideas, concepts, to actions, to embodiment. So let's keep moving forward. So with that said, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another successful, educational, entertaining, and inspirational broadcast through ParadigmShiftCentral.com. This has been Destiny School with the topic of consciousness of animals. The next Destiny School topic will be, I'm not exactly sure. I haven't fully decided yet. One of them is going to be about the flat Earth theory in the future. We'll talk about that. I'm not exactly sure when it will be, but it'll be at some point. But if you guys have suggestions for topics and themes that you would like to see for Destiny School, please feel free to let me know. I'm always open to being able to hear that. And stay tuned for other future broadcasts and lots more exciting stuff happening through the Paradigm Shift Central project. And as always, go out there and keep shifting the paradigms. Go out there, keep talking to people, do free hugs, do any sort of like, get involved with like animal rights activisms. If there's communities like that in where you are, start changing your diet. Those little things are excellent ways of just being able to put the intentions out there into the collective, and go share in the excitement with your pets if you got some pets, or go down to you know, go down to like a local the kennels where dogs are, and maybe you can even adopt a dog or something like that. You know, animals are here to be able to share this journey alongside with us as equals, as we have said. And I think it's very clear. And again, so thank you guys so much for helping bring forth that clarity. So with that said, we are wrapping up this broadcast, and thank you again, everyone into the live chat. Please feel free to leave your comments on this YouTube afterwards, share it with your friends, and stay tuned for future broadcasts. So just inviting everyone, we're going to unmute ourselves, and let's all make some more animal noises and send everyone some love, and we'll say goodbye after that. So unmuting everyone. So say until next time, guys. Make some animal noises. Meow, meow. Awesome. Sweet. All right, guys. Much love, guys. The wolf within me sees and honors the wolf within you. My name is Brendon. Until next time, keep it shifty, and we will see you guys in the future. Much love, peace, and wholeness.